arm. With precision, he delivered a punch that struck the sword's blade, generating a force that caused the weapon to shift slightly before he crouched low and advanced. Seeing this, Anja aimed his other hand at Mo Li, opening his palm as plasma rapidly condensed within it, the destructive energy coalescing. Mo Li's eyes flickered, and he swiftly elbowed Anja's arm aside, narrowly avoiding a beam of energy that sliced through the air, carving an abyssal fissure into the street below. At that moment, Anja hurled his giant sword, only to catch it again in a swift motion. Mo Li, sensing the movement, activated his side-mounted thrusters and narrowly evaded the grasp, responding with an upward hook that landed against Anja's mech beneath the ribs. Instantly, he lost sensation in his right side, his eyes widening in shock. The peculiar sensation swiftly enveloped his left side, just as his right began to regain feeling. Combat armor, Anja exclaimed, realizing that he had been caught in close quarters. The instant the thought crossed his mind, he activated the repulsion shield. As the shield expanded, an immense force repelled Mo Li. But before Anja could breathe a sigh of relief, he witnessed Mo Li's fists tremble, morphing into two razor-sharp blades. The blood pack transformed into dual blades, and simultaneously, the energy conversion engine initiated, causing the blades to radiate a crimson and azure glow. Seizing the opportunity presented by the momentary opening of the shield, Anja withdrew, creating distance. Mo Li's mech was too enigmatic. He dared not approach until he comprehended its nature. With a flick of his hand, he summoned the hurled watcher back to him. As the sword spun through the air, it emitted a whistling sound, prompting Mo Li to sidestep to avoid it. Anja grasped the sword, energy surging into it, creating tumultuous waves of power. Whoever you are. With dual swords in hand, Anja's body trembled as the engine's power propelled his mech forward at high speed. You shall perish here today. In that moment, Anja seemed poised to unleash all the pent-up frustration he had endured over the past days. The paperwork had been finalized. In mere minutes, he would become a pilot on the Zerg battlefield, and all transgressions committed within the Federation would be expunged. Before him lay not just a mech that might barely qualify as a novice in the Heavenly Punishment tier, but even two peak Heavenly Punishment mechs would struggle to subdue him. Upon this realization, Anja felt an overwhelming urge to let out a long, triumphant howl towards the heavens, his colossal sword dancing in tandem with his fervor. The celestial punishment-grade mech, combined with such a grand sword, allowed all the surging power of the mech to be channeled into it. A single strike from Mo Li could not be met with brute force. With another sweeping slash through the air, Anja was astounded by Mo Li's agility. He had never witnessed such dexterity in a mech. This agility was not merely a matter of speed or direction. Had it been so, Anja would have been more than capable given his extensive combat experience. His fighting style was one of grand gestures and sweeping movements, and many had previously sought to engage him with nimble mechs. However, upon their first encounter, he sensed that Mo Li was distinctly different. The movements were impeccably clean. Every evasive maneuver was executed with crisp precision, devoid of any superfluous actions. And when avoiding his strikes, Mo Li employed minimal motion. If Anja were to encapsulate it in a single phrase, it would be a dancer upon the edge of a blade. He pondered whether Mo Li's mech possessed a repulsion shield. If it did, the near-miss evasions would indicate a remarkable composure. If it did not, then he was a pure madman. With a sweeping strike aimed at forcing Mo Li back for a long-range bombardment. Anja was taken aback when Mo Li not only failed to retreat, but instead ascended nearly to his limits, narrowly avoiding the sweeping attack. Anja abruptly raised his gaze to behold Mo Li soaring high, and there was no time left to retract his sword. He could not allow him to get any closer. Noticing that the blood oath had transformed into a fist, Anja decisively activated the small missile bay. With armor panels on his shoulders and ribs simultaneously opening, dozens of missiles shot forth, exploding in close proximity. Seizing the moment to retreat, Anja suddenly felt a jolt in his chest. A lunatic. The thought flashed through his mind, and as he felt a tremor in his hands, he realized, peculiarly, that when he attempted to wield his sword with his right hand for defense, the mech's response was sluggish. This delay enabled Mo Li to maneuver behind him as he retracted his sword. Furthermore, during this turn, Mo Li spun closely around Anja, effectively rotating himself to his back, with all the miniature pulse plasma thrusters providing the necessary turning force, bestowing tremendous kinetic energy for this rotation. The subsequent whip kick sent Anja hurtling away. The blood oath transformed into dual blades, and simultaneously, the vector thrusters entered overload mode, causing the exhaust flames to extend longer and become paler. Boom. Before Anja could regain his composure, he was met by an armored mech, marred by numerous charred marks, crashing towards him. The collision of these two colossal steel entities erupted with a thunderous roar, sending them crashing into the lower cityscape, causing 2 or 3 small buildings to collapse, while panicked crowds fled in terror. Just as Anja gathered his strength, He was thrust into the ground by this newfound force, compelled to once again activate his repulsion shield. This time, Imoli was prepared. After the collision, he utilized the thruster's recoil to create distance, ensuring that Inja's repulsion shield did not rebound onto him. The left blade of the blood oath shimmered with frost. And then Imoli raised his hand to strike downward. The moment he made contact with the repulsive energy shield, a colossal snowflake of ice crystals expanded rapidly. Anja gazed in astonishment at the scene before him. A special engine? Without hesitation, he pushed the engine to its maximum power, gliding along the ground and crashing through several buildings. He had hoped to create some distance, yet when he glanced down, he was astounded to see Imoli trailing closely behind, as if he had anticipated Anja's every move. The proximity and acceleration of Imoli were alarming. Anja's pupils contracted as he realized that Imoli's flight path adhered closely to the route he had just cleared, allowing him to maintain his speed without hindrance. In contrast, Anja found himself colliding with buildings, his velocity diminishing significantly, while Imoli remained in an overloaded state. Before Anja could regain his composure, Imoli surged forward. The dual blades of the blood pact swirling violently, swiftly coating the repulsive shield in frost. Noticing the crimson hue spreading across the sharp blade in Imoli's right hand, Anja felt a surge of dread. He then witnessed Imoli's raised hand plunge down with ferocity, shattering the repulsive shield and exposing his armor to Imoli's onslaught. Instinctively, Anja attempted to lift the gigantic sword of the Guardian, but Imoli struck simultaneously with both elbows, causing Anja's arms to tremble and momentarily lose control of the mech. Then, a cascade of blue light erupted from Imoli's form, and in a fleeting moment, Anja perceived a wondrous arrangement of constellations. Upon closer inspection, they appeared to be miniature thrusters activating. Suddenly, a chilling gleam expanded rapidly before his eyes. The sound of metallic clanging rang incessantly, as frost spread swiftly across his mech. Anja could even feel the cold seeping through, eroding his very being. What kind of energy is this? Anja soon realized this was no mere illusion. His fingers had begun to stiffen. This was energy far beyond what any ordinary special conversion engine could generate, capable of penetrating even his judgment-class armor. As the frost spread, the sensation of rigidity coursed through his entire body, akin to death's gentle caress. Anja was engulfed in terror. At that moment, a voice graced his ears, reminiscent of celestial music. Your Zerg battlefield identity has been registered and is now in effect. Anja could hardly respond. I am a frontline officer of the Zerg battlefield. You cannot kill me. Imoli's left hand paused momentarily. What did you say? I am a frontline officer of the Zerg battlefield. According to the Federal Empire's laws, Zerg frontline officers must be sanctioned by the Joint Court. What? Imoli's voice, laced with confusion, echoed through the public channel. Under the threat of death, Anja felt himself unraveling. If you kill me, you will face the Joint Court's judgment. The entire Federation will not tolerate you. Huh, what are you babbling about? Imoli rolled his eyes and plunged the plasma-infused blade downward, easily piercing the cockpit. The scorching plasma instantly caused the cockpit's temperature to soar, and Anja screamed, his eyes widening in horror. He watched as the blade penetrated the cockpit, the intense heat vaporizing his blood and charring his wounds. Life ebbed away rapidly. On the other end of the channel, frantic shouts erupted. Anja, what is happening? Anja, answer me. However, Anja's response would remain forever unheard. Imoli drew forth his sharp blade, casting a glance at the mech armor before him, which had been rendered brittle by the cryogenic fluid, and shattered it with a single punch. The fragmented armor crumbled away, exposing the intricate mechanical structure of the cockpit, while Anja's lifeless form materialized before Imoli's eyes. At that moment, both mechs were in a prone position. Imoli obliterated the wall ahead, and then crawled out. The fierce battle had long since captured the attention of the space city, even though Imoli had reported in. The presence of a celestial punishment-level powerhouse engaging in combat within the city warranted constant scrutiny. In truth, since Imoli had contacted the officials, they had dispatched personnel to follow him. Yet Imoli's speed was too swift. When Anja emerged to confront him, the official hovercraft had only just arrived. What do you mean by evacuation? I'm sorry, but this is the development zone. There's no one here. This star system is inherently remote, and the officials were desperately trying to curry favor with the Galaxy Academy. Imoli's negotiations with the authorities had barely exceeded 3 minutes. From the moment he presented the credentials given by Jiang Yan, he faced no obstacles and finalized his plans in just 2 minutes. Moreover, the Space City officials, seeking to create a buzz, had even initiated a live broadcast, which had already amassed over 100 million viewers. The uproar surrounding Anja's bounty had ignited widespread interest, and any mention of him had become a hot topic. The officials' promotional efforts had indeed succeeded, generating an overwhelming buzz, though the question remained whether it could be sustained. The officials had endeavored to showcase the surrounding planets in the livestream, inserting advertisements, and the like. Yet it proved futile since the audience's focus was solely on the climactic battle. They were aware that it was a pilot from the Galaxy Academy, yet they could not discern his identity. The Academy was home to many renowned celestial punishment-level pilots, though most were engaged on the Zerg battlefield. This particular one was a stranger to them. Some attempted to peruse the instructor listings of the Galaxy Academy, only to find no mention of this mech. While outsiders could not recognize him, the Academy's students did. Isn't that instructor Mo Li? What on earth is he doing in such a distant star system? His opponent is Inja. This is intense. What am I witnessing? The students of the Academy, who had been anxiously awaiting Mo Li's return, erupted in excitement. They had been searching for his whereabouts tirelessly, practically turning the Academy upside down in their quest, yet they had found nothing, with rumors proving to be mere whispers. But after a brief moment of indignation, witnessing Mo Li decisively overpowering Inja sent them into a frenzy. The earlier disappointment of being stood up vanished in an instant. What level was Inja? He was at the pinnacle of celestial punishment. And Mo Li? They were unaware of his exact level. But they were all too familiar with the blood debts he carried. Originally piloting a star pirate's vessel, outsiders might not comprehend the implications of such a background. However, they were well aware, perceiving it as mere scrap metal, unable to fathom a fortress-class mech lacking hegemonic technology. Yet here was Mo Li, leveraging his blood debts to relentlessly overpower Inja. Inja's mech boasted a repulsion shield, one of the Empire's core technologies, along with a laser cannon of astonishing lethality, also a product of hegemonic science. In the realm of alternative powers and armor, there may be even more intricacies at play. Who knows how Mo Li emerged victorious? Not only the students, but even the mentors are baffled. How the defenses were breached remains a mystery, and why Inja seemed so inactive is perplexing. It felt as though there was a significant lag in their actions. At this moment, the victims of Qin Wang Gu had much to say. No, this is merely Mo's signature technique. I experienced the same when battling Qin Wang Gu. It feels as if the mechs exhibit considerable delay, which is quite discomforting. Is it truly that enigmatic? Enigmatic? Isn't Inja jesting with his life? How can one overlook the fact that Mo is dominating the fight? As Mo Li and Inja crashed into the building, the hovering vehicles filming the confrontation could only maintain a distant focus on the structure. For no one desired to meet an untimely demise. If it weren't for the sturdy architecture of the interstellar era, the impact of the two mechs would have been catastrophic. Yet, the spectators felt deep down that the buildings were excessively robust, as they could not witness the internal conflict. The authorities could only dispatch drones. But before they could infiltrate, a wall was shattered by Mo Li's powerful strike. As the blood-stained, charred armor emerged, the crowd widened their eyes in astonishment. Had victory been determined? Despite the absurdity of this notion, Mo Li's demeanor hardly suggested defeat. Who has ever witnessed a valiant champion strolling about leisurely after a loss? Upon exiting the building, Mo Li spotted several hovering vehicles in the distance, clearly the handiwork of the Sky City authorities. However, these matters were of no concern to him. He was intent on collecting his spoils. Emerging from the structure, he swiftly reached through the gaping hole to extract Inja's mech. When the official live feed captured the gaping wound on Inja's mech, both the onlookers present and those watching in real time fell into a profound silence. A pinnacle of divine retribution-grade machinery lay there, dragged out like a mere heap of scrap metal. No one had anticipated such a swift conclusion. Even when Inja was at a disadvantage earlier, they believed he would surely have other strategies, perhaps a new twist in the tale. Yet, merely moments after entering the building, he emerged as a lifeless shell. Dragging Inja's mech, Mo Li activated the engine and soared towards the spaceport. Shinji, how goes the processing? Rest assured, no matter how they test it, the channel receiver for the blood debt must be malfunctioning. As he returned, Jiang Yan's communication came through simultaneously. Did you succeed? Jiang Yan's voice barely concealed his excitement. Even through the light screen, Mo Li could perceive his slightly trembling form. He is dead. I could have taken him alive, but he claimed to have obtained some sort of officer status on the Zerg frontline, and thus could not be killed. Jiang Yan's expression suddenly hardened. An officer on the Zerg battlefield? It seems so. I knew the Empire would not relinquish him so easily. Yet, he soon recalled that Mo Li appeared to have successfully slain Inja during the live broadcast, causing even someone as seasoned as Jiang Yan to momentarily be at a loss for words. Wait. Overwhelmed by thoughts, Jiang Yan took a moment to collect his mind and, after clarifying the situation, spoke gravely. He was uncertain when the individual's identity had been established, but given that he had been concealing it for an extended period, it was likely a recent development, perhaps even unannounced. Jiang Yan lowered his head in contemplation, pacing back and forth. If that were the case, there might still be a way to maneuver. There's no need for such complexity, Mo Li interjected. You are correct. His identity has likely just been assigned. However, he failed to present any relevant documentation at that time. nor did he disclose it at the onset of battle. Is ignorance truly a defense in your realm? Jiang Yin nearly stumbled at Mo Li's audacious maneuver, instinctively posing a rather naive question. How do you know he obtained the frontline officer's credentials from the Zerg? I heard it. Mo Li responded without a hint of awareness. Jiang Yan's mind momentarily blanked, only to be met with a log from Mo Li's mech, which indicated that during the missile assault from Inja, Mo Li's mech's receiver had sustained damage. Jiang Yan widened his eyes in astonishment. This simplifies matters significantly. Wouldn't you agree? Mo Li chuckled. This is exceedingly manageable. Even if the Emperor of the Empire were present, I could ensure your safety. While his words were somewhat exaggerated, they underscored Jiang Yan's burgeoning confidence. Excellent. You have truly surprised me. Jiang Yan realized that the number of joyful occurrences he had encountered today far surpassed those of the previous year. Nothing much. I shall return now. All right. Mo Li ended the communication and proceeded to drag Inja's mech back to the spaceport, preparing to dock it. However, he was caught off guard by the Empire's swift response. Upon seeing 5 fully armed mechs from the official security team blocking the spaceport, he understood that the Empire had undoubtedly arranged for someone nearby to intercept Inja. The timing was suspicious. It was unreasonable for them to arrive so promptly after the conflict had ended. Normally, official forces would adopt a wait-and-see attitude in such scenarios. On one hand, they could not afford to offend the Zerg frontline officer from the Empire, yet on the other hand, the Star River Academy, as the local power in the Dongli Star region, was equally untouchable. Based on Xuanji's analysis of the local officials, it was likely that they would take a conciliatory approach in this situation. Yet, with 5 fully armed mechs present, Mo Li could sense an impending threat, as if he was being targeted, and he was acutely aware that battleships outside were locking onto him. Mo Li, you are suspected of assaulting a Zerg frontline officer. Please exit your mech immediately. Mo Li paid no heed, for his receiver was currently inoperative. The 5 mechs raised their shoulder-mounted cannons, their electromagnetic pulse barrels glowing with a menacing blue light, poised to fire. In response, Mo Li adopted a serious demeanor, discarding Inja's mech carelessly to the ground, while the blood-packed dual blades emerged. As Mo Li entered a state of alert, the atmosphere grew palpably tense. The hovering vehicles trailing behind faithfully broadcasted the scene, leaving onlookers bewildered, unsure of the unfolding events. Once again, I command you, lower your weapons. Power down your mechs. The tone of the other party bore a hint of coercion, leaving the officials of Space City rather bewildered. The person in charge, Parsons, was utterly perplexed by the situation. However, it was not long before a superior from his jurisdiction contacted him. The matter was intricate, and he was advised to refrain from intervening. The other party gravely instructed Parsons, clearly aware of certain undercurrents, recognizing this as a confrontation between the Empire and the Academy. The adage, a strong dragon cannot suppress a local snake, came to mind, yet the Empire, a formidable dragon, held an official agreement that placed the onus on the local forces of the Star River Academy to prove their mettle. Parsons' superior, though resigned, lamented that if the Federation were even slightly more united, they would not find themselves in such a predicament, with the Empire audaciously extending its reach. Currently, the Federation was rife with factions, and many prominent senators appeared ready to establish their own domains, with several having been infiltrated by the Empire. This loose organization paled in comparison to the Imperial authority. Upon receiving this information, Parsons promptly instructed the hovercraft to maintain their distance. The insignia on those mechas indicated they belonged to the Federation's regular army, and as a mere subordinate, his role was to act as a faithful transmitter of information. The Empire's maneuvers were far from straightforward. They had dispatched personnel and warships, while simultaneously stirring public sentiment online. Numerous revelations concerning Anja emerged, the most notable being that he had officially become an officer on the Zerg front following negotiations between the Federation and the Empire. This particular piece of news spread widely, with the Empire covertly orchestrating a considerable amount of influence behind the scenes. The Zerg front represented a joint force established by the Empire and the Federation to combat the Zerg, a cosmic calamity that consumed everything. Despite the ongoing minor frictions between the Federation and the Empire, they ultimately chose to unite in the face of this existential threat. However, the long-standing grievances between the two factions rendered true unity elusive, resulting in the formation of this somewhat peculiar and alternative third force. All military strength from this entity would be directed towards the battle against the Zerg, as the adversary was not human. Thus, both the Empire and the Federation favored casting some of their most heinous criminals into this conflict, allowing them to expend their final energies for humanity's cause. With Anja's identity now revealed, the situation took an unexpected turn. The Dongli Star region remained under the Academy's dominion, and upon the announcement of Anja's information, it was swiftly retracted and censored. Furthermore, the Academy's officials made a robust statement. Firstly, regarding Anja's identity, the Academy had no issue obtaining the timeline, and when the precise moment was disclosed, it became evident that it coincided with his battle against Mo Li. This timing was somewhat ambiguous. Many speculated that the conflict had already commenced, where even a moment's hesitation could determine life or death. Under such circumstances, it was inevitable that Mo Li had not received the information promptly. However, there were also those who considered the broader implications, believing it a grave loss for such a pinnacle pilot to fall so easily. Such a rare talent should ideally be deployed on the Zerg front. The online debates raged on, yet the Star River Academy remained unfazed by the discord. With the Empire encroaching upon their territory, a failure to retaliate would only serve to diminish their prestige. Thus, the Star River Academy exhibited an unexpectedly resolute stance in this confrontation. In the realm of the Empire, to ensure that future subordinates would not feel disheartened, a powerful endorsement for Enjo was made, so much so that it even caught the attention of the Emperor. These developments unfolded within mere minutes while Mo Li was still locked in a standoff with several preceding mechs. The swiftness of this information's dissemination and the rapid reaction it prompted inevitably led one to ponder whether there were unseen forces orchestrating this turmoil. However, Mo Li, the principal figure, was far too preoccupied with the imminent threat posed by the battleship's main cannon, now aimed directly at him. He and Shinji had not anticipated the Empire's audacity in mobilizing warships to target the space city within the Federation's territory. Though the language employed was universal across the cosmos, its abstract nature rendered it incomprehensible to Mo Li when presented in such a concatenated form. This is troubling, Shinji. Is the energy for the Shifangji ready? It is prepared and can tear through dimensions at any moment. Naturally, Mo Li was not one to remain passive. His seemingly capricious actions were underpinned by a well-concealed trump card. This ace in the hole was none other than the Super Mech from the Yanlong Empire, Shifangji. Equipped with a quantum engine, Shifangji could utilize quantum entanglement to breach dimensions and arrive at Mo Li's side. Currently, Shifangji possessed sufficient energy for a high-intensity operation lasting approximately 10 minutes. Given its capabilities, no one should be able to detain Mo Li. Unlike the Huanyu shelling, which suffered significant damage after traversing a black hole, Shifangji experienced minimal damage during combat. It merely lacked energy, which did not hinder its fighting capacity. At this moment, the mechs, witnessing Mo Li's unwavering resolve to resist, readied themselves for battle. Surrender, or the fleet's main cannon will raise this place to the ground. Mo Li replied with a semblance of amusement, including you all. If you resist arrest, that includes us. How intriguing. You may capture me, but what proof do you possess? Surely there must be an arrest warrant? The 5 mechs fell into silence, for they had no such document. Enja had only recently acquired his identity before meeting his demise. The Federation could not possibly issue an arrest warrant so swiftly, as several senators were likely still entangled in deliberations. This was essentially the Empire leveraging its influence within the Federation to swiftly eliminate Mo Li. The Empire's intelligence apparatus had infiltrated deeply. Mo Li's identity had been nearly fully excavated. Upon recognizing the emergence of such a prodigy, the only sentiment left towards Mo Li was an abyss of murderous intent. Their analytical department, after reviewing Mo Li's information in this combat, had concluded that he would undoubtedly rise to the pinnacle of star ring-level pilots, with the potential to ascend further to singularity level. Singularity-level individuals possess the capacity to sway interstellar conflicts, and the Empire would never allow such a pilot to ascend unchecked. In the eyes of the Empire's high command, this operation was no longer merely a quest for vengeance against Enja, but a calculated assassination targeting Mo Li. They sought to obliterate this newly risen supernova. No one anticipated the Empire's lethal intent would manifest so swiftly and unexpectedly, including one of the mechs, which brazenly initiated an attack. All 5 mechs were fortress level, and the leftmost mech suddenly unleashed its cluster electromagnetic cannon. Mo Li instinctively sensed the imminent danger, subconsciously shifting to the side as an electromagnetic cannon whizzed past his arm, piercing through the rear wall of the port. In that fleeting moment, the atmosphere became palpable and tense. Nearby, the 4 mechs were taken aback, with one exclaiming, "Son, what are you doing?" Their orders had been to maintain control of the situation without inciting conflict, while ensuring Mo Li remained unharmed. However, they had not anticipated that someone would take action so abruptly. With the electromagnetic cannon having fired at him, Mo Li immediately activated his engine, a blazing tail flame erupting behind him. The other 4 mechs lagged slightly behind, just as they witnessed Mo Li charging towards the mech that had fired the cannon. The speed of his vector thrusters surpassed their expectations, and he reached the mech just as it instinctively began to retreat. Taken aback by Mo Li's rapid advance, the opponent raised their right hand to deploy a light shield. With the blood pack transforming into twin blades, Mo Li struck down, shattering the light shield in an instant. At this moment, the other four mechs finally reacted, their weapons aligning to target Mo Lee. Stand down. Yet, as the light shield crumbled, Mo Lee activated his microthrusters, maneuvering to the rear of that mech. Just as it attempted to overload its engine to escape, a crimson blade erupted from its back. The searing heat melted through the steel of its chest, revealing the charred remains of a humanoid form within the gaps. A brief silence enveloped the scene before a brilliant flash in the distance caught their attention, from the perspective of the four mechs. They witnessed a massive fireball rapidly expanding just beyond the spaceport. Amidst the bursting flames, accompanied by countless fragments of warships, a colossal figure emerged, trailing a long tail of fire. Sparks from the explosions danced around it as it soared away at an astonishing speed, the debris swept behind it. While that mech swiftly approached the space city, the officials broadcasting the event were left dumbfounded by this sudden turn of events. It seemed the trajectory of the situation had shifted dramatically. Parsons felt as though his mind had yet to process the chaos. How had the distant ship exploded in an instant? Moreover, it appeared to be the doing of that very mech. Upon recognizing the mech, his pupils dilated in shock, the Ember Breaker. As the warship detonated in the distance, the sense of being targeted that had gripped Mo Lee dissipated. At this moment, Xuanji also alerted him to an incoming communication request. Connect. Well done, my boy. You've certainly stirred up quite a commotion. A hearty laugh resonated through, followed by a holographic screen materializing in Mo Lee's cockpit, revealing a middle-aged man with stubble, a blue light casting a virtual mask over his face. Since the Empire dares to reach out, let us make them pay. It's time to unleash chaos. With raucous laughter, the figure plunged into the remaining four mechs. And in the moment of landing, a field crackling with arcs of electricity opened, rendering the movements of the four mechs excruciatingly slow. The scene unfolded with an air of casual elegance as the mech struck down four adversaries with a single, decisive blow, causing them to plummet to the ground. The arc of electricity dissipated, a testament to the prowess displayed. Mo Lee observed this personal exhibition with keen interest, only inquiring after the four mechs were vanquished. Who are you? The middle-aged man's smile abruptly faltered. Instinctively, he pointed to his own face. Noticing the lingering confusion in Mo Lee's gaze, he, somewhat incredulously, severed the empathic link, revealing his true visage to Mo Lee. Yet, confusion still clouded Mo Lee's expression. Who am I? You do not recognize me? The man, taken aback, observed Mo Lee's meticulous scrutiny, a glimmer of anticipation igniting in his eyes. I do not know, Mo Lee replied honestly after careful consideration, confirming his lack of acquaintance with the man. The man's frustration mounted as he re-established the empathic connection, kicking the fallen mech with such force that it flew several meters away. You truly do not recognize me. This is infuriating. Yet, let us set this aside and address the matter at hand. Oh, I am Lu Jinan. You may call me Brother Lu. Very well, Jinan. As Lu Jinan prepared to deal with the four mechs, he stumbled slightly, reminding himself to focus on resolving the Imperial issue without succumbing to anger. He quietly pried open the hatches of the four mechs. Come out now. Should you even dare to start your engines, I shall not hesitate to crush you, he warned, withholding any fatal intent. As the four emerged, their faces still reflected a hint of trepidation. In the presence of such a formidable pilot capable of dismantling warships, their official titles offered little protection. Moreover, this mech, known as the Ember Breaker, was infamous in the Dongli Star region. This was a Starring-class mech, and its pilot, Lu Jinan, was also renowned, a high-ranking officer who had once defended a sector against the Zerg on the battlefield. Although they were unsure why Lu Jinan was present, his authority, post-battle, likely surpassed that of their superior, Parsons, by several ranks. Lu Jinan narrowed his eyes at the four before him. You landed your fleet at the space city. Where are your orders? The four men dared not meet his gaze. There are none aboard the warship. I instructed him to present them, yet he did not. Lu Jinan replied coldly. He was no reckless youth to charge in blindly. He had already communicated with the warship, and it was evident that they had yet to receive their orders. They appeared to be attempting to act first and secure results, intending to procure the orders later, by which time, Mo Lee would have been eliminated, making their task significantly easier. Alternatively, abandoning these individuals was not a significant concern for him. Thus, upon realizing they lacked orders, he acted decisively. Observing the four, their faces ashen, Mo Lee recognized that extracting any information from them was unlikely. The long-standing conflict between the Imperial Federation had rendered any major vulnerabilities nearly impossible to exploit. These individuals were effectively expendable pieces in a larger game. Before long, Xuanji completed her inspection of the four mechas, and the conclusion was indeed as expected. Upon realizing the impossibility of eliminating Mo Lee, they became aimless and took matters into their own hands. Lu Jinan turned his gaze toward the distant hover vehicle and coldly commanded, Arrest all these individuals for unauthorized mobilization of the mecha fleet. Lock the main cannon onto the space city. That will suffice to keep them occupied on the Zerg battlefield for a lifetime. Upon hearing this, Parsons and the vehicle quickly dispatched the city defense forces. And soon more than 10 assault-level mechas arrived to manage the scene. At that moment, a colossal object appeared in outer space. After receiving docking clearance, a massive spaceship gradually approached the port. "Follow me," Liu Jinan instructed, piloting his mecha to the rear of the ship. As the hatch opened, he maneuvered the mecha inside. Mo Li also disembarked, and from a distance, Liu Jinan, clad in silver-white combat attire, scrutinized him closely. "What a remarkable young man you are. Have you used genetic enhancement?" "Haha. Genetic drugs alone cannot achieve this effect. Do not be modest," Liu Jinan replied with a hearty laugh. "I am pressed for time and have come to assist old Jiang temporarily. I will just relay some matters and take my leave." "What matters?" Liu Jinan's expression turned grave. "Regarding the Empire, you might have already surmised part of it. The Empire has been involved throughout this incident, initially concerning Inja, but subsequently. The warships and mecha forces have been directed at you." "The Empire?" Emily pondered. "Why?" Liu Jinan slightly shook his head. "The Empire and the Federation have long been at odds. If it weren't for the looming threat of the Zerg, they would have clashed long ago. Even now, they are covertly undermining each other. Within the galaxy, you may not sense much, but at the Zerg front, two vast territories have been distinctly marked, one for the Empire and one for the Federation, in fierce opposition to one another." Emoli rolled his eyes at this and said, "Get to the point. What does this have to do with me? I am not heading to the Zerg front." Cough. Liu Jinan's expression darkened. "What a sharp tongue you have. The main issue is your performance has been so exceptional that the Empire is frightened." "Frightened of what? Don't they have super pilots?" "Yes, they certainly do. But consider the implications of a super pilot facing a regime as centralized as the Empire." Emoli fell silent. "The true strength of a super pilot lies in their ability to operate a super mecha equipped with ample technology and energy, enabling them to engage in combat independently without being hindered by the slow-moving fleet. At this juncture, should there be a beheading, the Federation operates on a parliamentary system where each member wields considerable power, yet none are irreplaceable. The death of one or two would hardly sway matters. The Empire, however, is different. Should anything happen to the Emperor, the entire Empire might crumble." But as Emoli reflected, he had merely exhibited peak strength at the level of divine retribution, and the Empire had already begun to target him. They were intent on snuffing out any threat in its infancy. That Emperor must be quite fearful of death, Emoli finally remarked after a long pause. "Indeed, to an extreme degree," Liu Jinan shook his head. "The star system housing the Emperor remains ungrasped by the Federation. Rumors abound that he is in a dimension, in subspace, or even absurdly, aboard a super warship." Curiosity enveloped Mo Li as he pondered the circumstances that led to this situation. Why had it come to such an extent? The previous emperor had been assassinated, of course. Mo Li was taken aback. Centuries ago, a master pilot from the Federation wielded a stellar flame cannon, obliterating the imperial capital in a single strike. Astonishing, isn't it? Indeed, yet the Empire has always produced remarkable individuals. The current emperor, a formidable leader, emerged from the peripheral star systems, vanquishing various warlords along the way, ultimately unifying the Empire. Numerous tomes have been penned about him within the Federation. Upon hearing this, Emoli finally comprehended why the Federation and the Empire, despite the imminent threat posed by the Zerg, continued to engage in internal strife. Such deep-seated enmity meant that if the pressure from the Zerg were to lessen even slightly, a glimmer of hope would prevent their unification. Reflecting on the Yanlong Empire, Emoli shook his head slightly. Regardless, the Yanlong Empire is now unified, which undoubtedly strengthens their resolve against the Zerg. However, the calamity of the Zerg cannot be ignored. Their growth rate is alarmingly rapid. If the Federation and Empire persist in their current state, they will inevitably be devoured. At this juncture, Xuanji quietly remarked that this place was quite terrifying, suggesting they should vacate soon. Initially, upon encountering the Zerg, she was unaware of their true nature, believing that the Federation and Empire possessed adequate strength to withstand them. Yet, it now appeared that the two factions could not unite. By the time the Zerg truly flourished, any chance of cooperation would be long gone. Both Mo Li and Xuanji had experienced the devastation wrought by the Zerg and understood the terror of this species. Conversely, Liu Jinan, who had previously been on the front lines against the Zerg, exhibited a remarkable composure, showing little concern for the matters between the Empire and the Federation. Unable to contain his curiosity, Mo Li inquired, given the current state of affairs, how could they not fear the Zerg dismantling them one by one? In response to Mo Li's question, Liu Jinan expressed his confusion. While the Zerg were indeed formidable, they had yet to reach a point requiring the Empire and Federation to act in unison. They had existed for thousands of years, and their rate of expansion was not particularly alarming. I would prefer to flee, Xuanji sighed. Mo Li shared a similar sentiment. Sensing that the Zerg were evidently biding their time for a significant move, there was a 99% likelihood that consumption was innate to the Zerg. Their prolonged inactivity suggested that they had yet to exhaust the resources of their occupied star regions. Since her inception, Xuanji had devoted considerable time to studying the Zerg, making her knowledge of them unparalleled within the Yanlong Empire. She would not entertain the notion that the Zerg would remain complacent, simply occupying a star region without further action. Their reproduction demands energy, and the amount they consume daily is astronomical. This star region is insufficient for their insatiable appetite unless there exists a previously uncharted cosmic area rich in resources beyond the Zerg's current domain. Even so, the Zerg, a species that consumes more as their numbers increase, will eventually reach a point of saturation. This situation is akin to stepping on one's own foot. It is far from the simplicity Lu Jinan perceived. After exchanging a few casual words with Mo Li, Lu Jinan piloted his ship away, while Mo Li returned to his vessel to secure his mecha before departing. Aboard the spacecraft, Mo Li bore a visage devoid of any semblance of ease. Prior to his arrival, he had never contemplated the profound peril that lingered here. The insectoid species now resembled a superlative bomb, poised to detonate at any moment. While both the Empire and the Federation remained utterly unprepared, there existed another possibility, however. The voice of Xuanji resonated from within the ship. What do you mean? On the opposite side of the insectoid species, there may be another race engaged in combat with them. Mo Li shook his head slightly, regardless of the circumstances. The insectoids ultimately posed a threat, and they lacked the advanced warship technology akin to that of our own. Relying solely on the prowess of elite pilots would not suffice to infiltrate the insectoid realm and ascertain the situation. Mo Li shook his head again. Although the Flame Dragon Empire and this region had both developed mechs of similar design, the Empire undoubtedly held the upper hand in warship technology. After all, during the planetary era, the Flame Dragon Empire was the first to pioneer warships. Xuanji fell silent for a moment, seemingly engaged in analysis. Mo Li surveyed the surrounding void, pondering whether our path home truly lay within the black hole. Regardless of its location, we must possess the means for self-preservation. Should the day arrive when the insectoids erupt in rebellion, we could traverse the black hole through the universal pardon. Moreover, this civilization is not as fragile as we had imagined. Mo Li rolled his eyes, sarcastically remarking, "Are you suggesting that when the sky falls, someone tall will hold it up? I fear not having someone to support me. My concern lies in whether that tall figure can withstand the collapsing heavens." Xuanji fell silent again, acknowledging that, at present, such a possibility indeed exists. Frustrated, Mo Li ran a hand through his hair and sighed. "I hope I won't be compelled to invoke the universal pardon to execute a beheading. I would rather flee." Mo Li departed, and it seemed that the situation had been resolved by Lu Jinan. Following Lu Jinan's intervention, the Federation adopted a more assertive stance. They could disregard Mo Li's affairs until their interests were threatened, focusing instead on their own gains. However, Lu Jinan's involvement signified the stance of the Star River Academy, a courtesy they were obliged to extend, as the council members sought to curry favor with the institution. After all, the 5 neutral votes from the Star River Academy during council meetings were highly coveted. Should one fail to support, while their adversary did, any proposal presented by the Academy would become a formidable challenge. The tranquility within the Federation had settled, yet the Empire's response remained resolutely firm, holding on to the fact that Inja's identity had not been established at the onset of combat. Moreover, during the skirmish, Mo Li's channel receiver malfunctioned, impeding communication and leaving them oblivious to his identity. The Empire sought to leverage Mo Li's situation, yet the council members engaged in prolonged disputes, ultimately yielding no resolution. In matters of contention, 3 council members could bicker with the Empire's officials for half a year, and this time, their enthusiasm was palpable. The Empire found itself at a loss. Upon realizing that the matter had entered a stage of protracted dispute, they understood that the outcome would likely be inconclusive. Nonetheless, the Empire could not swallow this indignation. Outwardly, they may feign acceptance, but whether they would covertly target Mo Li remained uncertain. For on this day, within the Empire, all underground organizations received word of a bounty. The target of the bounty is Mo Li, with information stating that his strength is unknown and he wields a primary level heavenly punishment mech. The reward is astonishing, a custom-built heavenly punishment mech paired with a custom-built star ring mech. Consequently, a current of unrest surged within the Empire. In the days following the battle between Inja and Mo Li, the number of spacecraft noticeably increased along the federal borders. However, when attempting to investigate their identities, each one appeared utterly normal. It was only upon returning to the Star River Academy that Mo Li discovered he was being hunted. Jiang Yen fulfilled his bounty, and within a single night, the reward money slipped away from Mo Li's account. causing the Yin Song Star region at the border to buzz with activity once more. Upon awakening the next day, Emoli gazed at his empty account, rubbed his eyes, and then a faint smile graced his face. Surely, I must be dreaming. With that, he chuckled and lay back down, pulling the blanket snugly around him, resembling a serene corpse. Half an hour later, Emoli rose, stretched lazily, and checked his account balance. Good heavens, it's still a dream within a dream. He then reclined once more. After a while, Emoli shot up suddenly, as if ejected from a cockpit. Ha ha ha. Such a grand commotion upon rising must indicate reality, right? Immediately, Emoli rubbed his hands together and opened his account to inspect the balance. Xianji, get out of my head. Ah! A resounding scream echoed throughout the entire villa. At noon, on his way to lunch, Qin Wang cautiously observed Emoli's expression. Mentor, what is wrong? Were you injured in the battle with Nja? Emoli shook his head slightly and replied solemnly, no. The injuries from that battle pale in comparison to my current discomfort. Then, should we conduct a thorough examination? Wanga. Emoli halted, gazing skyward. You must understand. Sometimes the wounds of the spirit are far greater than those of the body. The heartache can be so profound that it renders one breathless. This is no mere expression. Qin Wanga nodded earnestly. I have seen this in a television drama as well. What drama? However, your mentor has encountered someone whose spirit had evidently been wounded. The image of that heartbroken individual remains vivid in my memory. What kind of person? Qin Wanga inquired, intrigued. Irrelevant, merely a rather disheveled woman. Emoli turned to face Qin Wanga and declared fiercely, the type who could go months without bathing, absolutely unkempt. You must never emulate that. I still possess a certain degree of notoriety. If you were to follow suit, I would expose you online in an instant. No. I wouldn't dare, mentor. Qin Wanga's face turned pale in an instant. Chapter 62. A grand fan meeting. Initially, Emoli believed he could enjoy a normal meal with Qin Wanga. However, upon arriving at their usual dining spot, he realized his naivety. There were throngs of people. At first, Emoli wondered what these crowds were up to. It was in the nature of the people of the Yanlong Empire to gather in excitement, and Emoli was no exception. So, upon seeing a multitude of individuals outside their dining venue, he eagerly rushed over to see what the commotion was about. Why are there so many people? Wait for me a moment. I'll go take a look. Emoli briefly instructed Qin Wang Gu before hastily making his way forward. Qin Wang Gu anxiously exclaimed, Mentor, don't go. At that moment, Emoli was entirely preoccupied with the lively commotion ahead, oblivious to Qin Wang Ji's voice. Classmate, what is happening here? Emoli casually inquired of a nearby individual. Oh, nothing much. Wait, is that you, Emoli, our mentor? The student instinctively responded, and upon turning to face Emoli, a look of pure joy illuminated his face. Emoli was taken aback by how this individual recognized him, but when others heard the excited exclamation, they swiftly turned their heads, their gazes fixed on Emoli with fervent intensity. In that instant, Emoli felt a chill run down his spine, as if the collective gaze of these people could devour him whole. After a brief moment of stunned silence, the crowd erupted into fervor. It's really Mentor Emoli. He is here. Mentor Emoli, look at me. Incredible, the living Emoli. The rumors were true. Mentor Emoli is indeed here dining. A throng of admirers surged toward him like a horde of zombies unleashed. Surrounded by a sea of eager faces pressing in on him, Emoli suddenly contemplated whether the instinctive nature of onlookers could be altered. What do you all want? Emoli asked, his voice trembling slightly as he gazed at the crowd, who seemed intent on merging with him. During his time in the Yanlong Empire, everyone had appeared much more restrained in his presence. Mentor, are you still accepting students? We are here to enroll. The crowd clamored in chorus, and Emoli rubbed his temples, beginning to grasp the situation. This group of students had evidently been lying in wait for him. Qin Wanggu had gained fame in the freshman competition, leaving other students envious, as her previous prowess had been rather ordinary and she had not been particularly notable. Her performance in the college entrance examination was available in the official records of the Ong Mo Liku Star Domain, where she had performed adequately, while impressive locally. It was rather average within the esteemed Star River Academy. Hence, many believed her newfound acclaim was significantly attributable to Mo Li's influence. Moreover, no one doubted Mo Li's current strength. It was well established that he was at least at the star ring level, with his lack of a mech merely a temporary setback. Ahem, everyone, please calm down. I am not currently considering taking on new students. The crowd gasped in alarm, urgency flooding their expressions. Mentor, please reconsider. We promise to be obedient. Yes, Mentor, we will be good students. Please open a class. Oh, Mentor, just a little class. We searched the Academy's website but couldn't find your courses. We are genuinely eager to learn. You may scold us as you wish. Seeing their anxious faces, Emoli felt a headache coming on. He had come here solely for the tier punishment mech and the bounty, and having acquired them, he was certainly planning to leave. What financial compensation could the Academy offer him? A mere 1,000 billion wouldn't suffice for his expenditures. Thus, he could only respond delicately, "Dear students, I have other commitments during this time. I truly do not have the capacity to teach right now." Emily felt helpless. He was merely an honorary mech pilot, and once his goals were achieved, he intended to depart. Everyone should also consider other mentors. They are quite formidable as well. The crowd wore expressions that seemed to question the credibility of this assertion. While others may possess their own merits, they pale in comparison to Emily, a relentless individual who commands a fortress-level mech and effortlessly conquers the pinnacle of celestial trials. Those who qualify for the Galaxy Academy are far from foolish. Mentors of this caliber are rare and highly sought after, even among the Academy's own instructors, who do not exhibit such prowess. Moreover, Emily is not only youthful but also strikingly handsome, bestowing upon him an inherent advantage. Most others shared similar sentiments, and it took considerable persuasion for Emily to disperse the group, who retreated with their tails between their legs. With no meal accomplished, they could only resort to ordering takeout from the Academy. On the ride back, Emily lamented, "What a predicament this has become." Qin Wanga observed Emily's demeanor, torn between wanting to chuckle and suppressing the urge, resulting in a rather peculiar expression on her face. Emily shot her a glance, inviting her to laugh if she wished. Instantly, Qin Wanga's countenance grew serious, her delicate features taut. She was not foolish. This was certainly not a moment for laughter, lest Emily retaliate with a blow that could render her senseless. Alas, the root of the problem lies in finances. I must pursue wealth, as I cannot linger here. Are you in dire need of money, mentor? Qin Wanga inquired, perplexed, for it seemed that Emily should be financially secure, having recently received a windfall of 100 billion, with a custom mech awaiting his design and specifications. Indeed, I am in dire need, plagued by a rather extravagant burden. Mentioning this made Emily grit his teeth in frustration. At that moment, Xuanji, perhaps realizing her own wastefulness, suddenly interjected, "Once the new batch of energy arrives, the normal operational time for the Shifeng Ji can reach 20 minutes, with support for minimal overload. Just how long can it sustain overload? 10 seconds. Get lost." Understood. Qin Wanga observed Emily's silent but frequently changing expressions with curiosity, though she dared not inquire further. As Emily returned, within the academy, a large lake bordered by a cluster of villas revealed one such residence, where Yi Lingyin sat in the hall, her gaze fixed on the holographic display before her, which depicted Jiang Yan. Yi Lingyin's face was etched with astonishment. Is it him? Indeed, it is Emily. Lowering her head, her expression turned complex. Did he kill Inja? What is Emily's background? Do you know? I do not know. Upon landing on the planet, he was the one who saved me, but I am unaware of how he became trapped there. Furthermore, I did not observe any emergency landing spacecraft nearby. Jiang Yan furrowed his brow, and then it seemed he came to a realization. These details were no longer significant. He is not our enemy. Recalling Emily's identity, Jiang Yan felt at ease. Emily's recent actions undoubtedly dealt a heavy blow to the Empire, and he had seen the bounty information from that side. Reconciliation with the Empire was out of the question for Emily. Moreover, maintaining a tense relationship with the Empire would make it impossible for him to remain in the Federation, as it was unthinkable for Emily to align himself with the insectoid faction. This was a source of reassurance for Jiang Yan, as he could no longer return to the Empire. Chapter 63. The progress of Qin Wanga. Speaking of the custom mech, he has yet to communicate his requirements and thoughts to me. As the deep-seated grievances began to dissipate with the avenging of old scores, Jiang Yan felt a subtle shift in her emotions. Not quite joy, but certainly an alleviation from the previous turmoil. Do you wish to see him? Jiang Yan suddenly inquired. Upon hearing this, Yi Lingyin appeared to recollect something, her ears flushing crimson. No, I must continue my ascent in the ladder. At that moment, Emily had returned home, where he briefly updated Qin Wanga online before diving into research with Xuanji on how to customize a punishment-grade mech. Should he sell it or keep it for himself? Emily pondered, weighing two possibilities. The punishment-grade mech would undoubtedly fetch a fortune. Many would be eager to pay handsomely for it. Yet, if Emily were to utilize it, the customization along with materials provided by the Galaxy Academy would enable him to harness capabilities commensurate with the star ring level. Currently, Emily contemplated whether the blood debts he had accrued were sufficient. For hunting typical space pirates, his blood debts were already overwhelming. Even against those of the star ring level, he could resort to the 10 directions of silence for elimination. Xuanji was certainly focused on financial gain, as the initial investments merely served to energize the 10 directions of silence. The numbers of star coins required for the universal pardon would be even more staggering. While Emily engaged in these contemplations, Qin Wanga was also reinforcing the combat knowledge Emily had imparted through virtual battles on the star web. The opponents in these virtual confrontations were increasingly formidable, making Qin Wanga acutely aware of her own insignificance. The fleeting pride she had felt from achieving decent rankings in competitions was swiftly extinguished as she was thoroughly defeated. Utilizing the real mode in virtual battles has indeed proven immensely beneficial, she murmured after yet another defeat at the hands of a dazzling opponent, her gaze growing resolute. Mo Li possessed remarkable foresight. Aside from absorbing the key points he shared, Qin Wanga had immersed herself in virtual combat, though she faced relentless challenges. Each time she piloted a mech within the Academy's network, she felt a distinct enhancement in her abilities. After completing another round, just as she intended to continue, a notification illuminated her screen. Upon opening it, she discovered a message from Chun Xingxuang. The ladder is about to conclude. Are you competing for points? Seeing the message, Qin Wanga casually replied, I am not participating in the ladder. What? Chun Xingxuang responded in astonishment. You're not competing in the ladder? The rankings affect the resources allocated to us by the Academy. My mentor advised me to engage in virtual mode. Chun Xingxuang sent a flurry of question marks in response. Virtual mode? That defaults to a 100 in empathy and many functionalities for piloting mechs that don't exist in reality. What is the point of competing in virtual mode? Moreover, many mechs are merely conceptual. Even if you score high, it amounts to nothing. Qin Wanga pursed her lips slightly. I am competing using the real mode. Chun Xingxuang's eyes widened, his mouth agape, exclaiming, real mode in a virtual battle? What an extraordinary approach. My mentor possesses great foresight. I am advancing rapidly in virtual mode, Qin Wanga replied. In a sudden spark of realization, Chun Xingxuang sent her an invitation for a real duel. Come, let us try it out. 10 minutes later, Chun Xingxuang, filled with existential doubt, exited the game room, and the figure of Qin Wanga materialized beside her. Though she had not lost, the outcome felt no different from defeat. Qin Wanga remained elusive, yet Chun Xingxuang found it increasingly difficult to land a hit on her. Ultimately, it was the depletion of her mech's energy that led to Qin Wanga's downfall. With a slight enhancement, Qin Wanga's mech indicated to Chun Xingxuang that the loser was undoubtedly herself. Compared to the time of the freshman tournament, Qin Wanga's agility and technique had undergone remarkable improvement. Her senses sharpened to a keen edge, effortlessly evading the concealed attacks Chun Xingxuang had devised. Turning to Qin Wanga in a daze, Chun Xingxuang couldn't help but place her hands on her shoulders, inquiring, how did you train? It's like battling in real mode against virtual mode. Qin Wanga felt somewhat unnerved under her penetrating gaze. At that moment, I perceived the foresight of our instructor. In the beginning, my progress was nearly stagnant. But once I acclimated, my improvement became astonishing. This is a foundational, comprehensive enhancement. It seemed Chun Xingxuang had an epiphany. The virtual mode not only showcased a significant disparity in mech capabilities, but in comparison to real mode, everyone in virtual mode appeared as a prodigy. To bridge this vast chasm, one must fortify the fundamentals. Precision in maneuvers, engine output, energy utilization, and so forth must be meticulously mastered, for these are precisely the aspects that those who treat virtual mode as mere gameplay tend to overlook. Chun Xingxuang's insight was impressive. She quickly discerned the crux of the matter. Players in virtual mode come from diverse backgrounds, yet share a common flaw, their lack of real-world empathy to control mechs effectively. This deficiency results in a fundamental inexperience in mech operation. In virtual battles, they often seek flamboyant moves and powerful mechs, neglecting these essential elements as they come to unwind, not to endure hardship. Thus, the advantage of real mode over virtual mode lies therein, and such a profound disparity necessitates the utmost application of solid foundations. How terrifying! Chun Xingxuang could not help but feel a jolt of astonishment. Mo Li's strategy was indeed fantastical. While other pilots vied for prestige and resources within the celestial factions, he had carved out an alternative path to rapid advancement. At that moment, Chun Xingxuang suddenly recalled something. Quick, you must try real mode. Qin Wanga was initially reluctant, believing it a waste of time, yet she could not withstand Chun Xingxuang's fervent gaze and reluctantly ventured into real mode. Having little experience in real mode, her initial opponents were of mediocre skill, all of whom she easily dispatched. Victorious in a string of matches, she finally faced an equally matched adversary. However, within just 2 exchanges, she seized upon her opponent's flaw, launching a series of strikes that obliterated the mech. The same fate befell the subsequent challengers, leaving Chun Xingxuang observing from spectator mode, breathless with astonishment. Qin Wanga possessed an uncanny ability to exploit weaknesses. Her opponents often remained oblivious to the reasons behind their defeats, while she saw everything with crystal clarity. The discrepancies perceived from a third-person perspective are entirely different from those experienced in battle, yet Qin Wanga consistently discerns them before anyone else. Besides her keen eye for flaws, Her mastery over the mech's energy is nothing short of precise. At this moment, Qin Wanga's formidable foundational skills, coupled with her unique combat technique, leave Chen Xingxuang in a state of disbelief. Throughout her life, Chen Xingxuang has been surrounded by peers of similar age, all possessing remarkable talents that render her own abilities seemingly negligible. Hence, she had never truly acknowledged the significance of innate talent until this very moment, when its importance struck her with profound clarity. Although Qin Wanga's empathy level is relatively low, resulting in a sluggish advancement of her mental fortitude, the pressure Chen Xingxuang experiences while battling her is overwhelming. If Qin Wanga's empathy were to increase, along with her mental prowess, what advantages would remain for Chen Xingxuang? In terms of foundational skills and combat techniques, she finds herself utterly outclassed, with any potential victories merely a consequence of the stark disparity in mech technology and mental acuity, neither of which stem from her own diligence. Stubbornness defines Chen Xingxuang. She refuses to acknowledge her victory over Qin Wanga in the competition, perhaps due to an innate desire to validate her worth. If given the opportunity, she yearns for a fair confrontation with Qin Wanga. However, after facing her in the freshman competition, that desire is relegated to the depths of her mind. For she understands that in such a scenario, defeat is inevitable. After exchanging a few words with Qin Wanga, Chen Xingxuang exits the room, takes a deep breath, and activates the virtual battle mode. I can do this too, she convinces herself. Half an hour later, she emerges from the virtual battle mode, her eyes vacant, with only one thought lingering in her mind. How did Qin Wanga manage her victories? In that half hour, aside from the initial matches against novices, she suffered defeat in every subsequent encounter. Each opponent was a prodigious talent, maneuvering their mechs with fluidity and precision, akin to confronting a living mech. In reality, with all assists activated and empathy maximized in the virtual space, these individuals could be likened to the mechs themselves. Exiting the star network, Chen Xingxuang gazes vacantly ahead. But the memory of Qin Wanga stirs a sense of resentment within her. Nevertheless, is it truly feasible for a human to triumph in virtual battle mode? Undeterred, she opens her star ring, projecting a holographic display, and conducts a search. Can one genuinely compete in virtual mode under real conditions? This question has been posed by many, leading her to uncover a plethora of information. It's impossible. I am a fortress-level pilot, and in virtual battles, I am no match for them. How could that be? In virtual battles, all assists are maximized, allowing the mech to execute actions at the speed of thought. Even with a 100 empathy in real mode, one cannot achieve such extremes. The previous comment holds merit, especially considering the exaggerated attributes of conceptual mechs. It's not as absolute as you claim. Do you remember the Tyrannosaurus Rex master? Tyrannosaurus Rex? The one who rose to prominence for a time before vanishing after reaching Starshine? Aside from other matters, I genuinely admire the Tyrannosaurus Rex, who boldly employs military-grade mechs to ascend to the starry summit. It is said that the Tyrannosaurus Rex operates in a true mode. As a being of divine retribution, I can assure you on my honor that this is implausible. The answers to the inquiries are all negative. However, Chen Xingxuang glimpsed another name among these responses, the cosmic invincible Tyrannosaurus Rex. This somewhat ostentatious title appears to be quite renowned within the virtual battle network. Chen Xingxuang proceeded to search for another term, and the information regarding this cosmic invincible Tyrannosaurus Rex was abundant. What strength would a super genius on the virtual battle network possess if the Tyrannosaurus Rex had an affinity level of 80? Guaranteed star ring. Guaranteed star ring. Observing the online reactions, Chen Xingxuang furrowed her brow. Such exaggeration was unwarranted. Did they truly grasp the implications of the star ring level? With a mix of skepticism and curiosity, she opened various videos concerning the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Upon witnessing the Tyrannosaurus Rex in combat, her pupils constricted. It bore an uncanny resemblance. The essence was strikingly similar to Qin Wanga. The foundational skills were so solid that they were astonishing. Every action during battle was executed with precision and efficiency, devoid of any superfluous movements. The mechanical performance was pushed to its limits, with energy consumption for the shield's activation meticulously calculated, striking at the enemy's vulnerabilities with its utmost strength, thus achieving victory against stronger foes. Moreover, in terms of discerning weaknesses, one could not say it was identical. Rather, it was as if crafted from the same mold. Yet, Qin Wanga was the true imitator. In this Tyrannosaurus Rex, she seemingly glimpsed the future embodiment of Qin Wanga. If Qin Wanga were to continue on this path, she might very well evolve into this form. However, the manner in which Qin Wanga fought was taught by her mentor. An incredible hypothesis emerged in her mind. Almost instinctively, she sent a message to Qin Wanga. Wanga, what is your mentor's ranking in the ladder? It seemed that Qin Wanga had just concluded a battle, as her reply was instantaneous. I'm not entirely sure. But my mentor seems not to have spoken much about the ladder. Then, Have you ever seen him engage in the latter? No. Chen Xingxuang's heart raced wildly. The sensation of suddenly uncovering a monumental secret that no one else was aware of was overwhelming. At this moment, Mo Li remained oblivious to the fact that someone was probing into his background as he continued discussing with Xuanji whether to acquire this customized divine retribution mech. Ultimately, they reached no conclusion, but Xuanji suggested consulting Jiang Yan. Having served as a professor at the Galaxy Academy for many years, Jiang Yan possessed considerable insight and might offer a unique perspective. Are you considering selling this qualification? Jiang Yan gazed incredulously at Mo Li's visage on the screen. You must contemplate this thoroughly. The divine retribution mech tailored with the technology of the Galaxy Academy is, at the very least, at the peak level. Even some star ring level pilots would covet this qualification. I understand. Mo Li shook his head slightly, feigning a bitter smile. Yet, I find myself in dire need of star coins, substantial amounts, as it concerns my family. Jiang Yan's heart stirred at the mention of family. Indeed, there are numerous nobles from the Empire. Could it be that Mo Li is an heir to a prominent family that has fallen into misfortune or even faced annihilation? Prompting his flight to the Federation? The more he pondered, the more convinced Jiang Yan became of his hypothesis. At that moment, he heard Mo Li speak again. Professor, if it were possible, I would not wish to sell. However, this mech cannot alter my current predicament. Is there a means by which this mech could earn me a greater sum of star coins in a short time? Jiang Yan gazed deeply at him. How much do you wish to earn? More than the value of this mech, Mo Li replied resolutely. He harbored little hope when he uttered those words. It was precisely because he understood the mech's worth that he recognized the difficulty of earning anything beyond it. There are two options, Jiang Yan stated. First, external forces. They do not belong to the Federation or the Empire, yet they command considerable wealth as they dominate the mech pilot's punishment star ring. Second, the Zerd battlefield. After presenting these two choices, Jiang Yan closely observed Mo Li's expression, which regrettably remained unchanged. Deep down, he secretly hoped Mo Li would choose the Zerd battlefield. It was there that Mo Li's true potential could be unleashed amidst a war between civilizations, a place where the brilliance of this world truly shone. Honestly, he also yearned to see how far Mo Li could advance on the Zerd battlefield. The Zerd battlefield can yield star coins? Jiang Yan exclaimed, taken aback. Are you truly blinded by the allure of wealth? On the Zerd battlefield, military merit is paramount. Military merit? Indeed. The Zerd battlefield is governed by the United Council, comprising equal members from both the Empire and the Federation. They oversee all technological advancements in their repositories, excluding ultimate technologies. Many of these technologies are unattainable through monetary means. Yet on the Zerd battlefield, military merit allows the United Council to deploy them on your mech. Mo Li's expression shifted. Surely, the mere presence of a technology repository would not suffice to compel so many powerful individuals to risk their lives there? Correct. In addition to the technology repository, there are also mech repositories, equipment stores, and more. Essentially, anything you can imagine can be exchanged for military merit, not to mention the star coins. Jiang Yan sighed softly. While the Zerd battlefield is fraught with peril, it is also rife with opportunities, bolstered by the full support of the Federation and the Empire. Throughout our evolutionary history, we have adapted to evade dangers. Conversely, it is only through peril that we can accelerate our growth. Many individuals of modest talent have transcended their limits due to the life-and-death battles on the Zerd battlefield, with some even achieving further levels of resonance. The Zerd battlefield seemed to resonate with Jiang Yan's own aspirations. His dedication to research was ultimately driven by the hope of one day shining brightly on that very battlefield. Mo Li listened intently as Jiang Yan spoke passionately about the battlefield of the insectoid race. It appeared that the mention of this realm had truly opened the floodgates for him, as he recounted tales of once ordinary warriors who had subsequently achieved breakthroughs, and the astonishing technological advancements that had emerged amidst the chaos of battle. It was evident that Jiang Yan was deeply enamored by this world. Mo Li, a commendable audience, remained silent throughout, absorbing every word with keen attention. Jiang Yan spoke for over an hour without interruption, and as the length of his discourse began to parch his throat, he paused to take a sip of water. I must apologize for my lengthy monologue, he chuckled. Though Mo Li's serious demeanor suggested, he was profoundly moved by Jiang Yan's words. A sense of pride swelled within Jiang Yan. It was difficult not to yearn for the grandeur of such a battlefield, where one could rise to prominence amidst the struggle against the insectoid foes. Mo Li seemed no exception to this yearning. However, the insectoid battlefield remained the focal point of civilizational warfare, and the mortality rate was alarmingly high. I believe I have conveyed all that needs to be understood regarding the insectoid battlefield, Jiang Yan remarked, his expression hinting at the belief that Mo Li had already made up his mind. The look on his face almost implored, "Come find me. Let me lead you to the insectoid battlefield." Yet, Mo Li maintained a grave expression, and upon noticing the furrowed brows, Jiang Yin could not help but inquire. Is there something you do not understand? Jiang Yin felt he had elaborated exhaustively on the pros and cons of the insectoid battlefield. So what could Mo Li still be unclear about? Mo Li lifted his gaze slightly at the inquiry. Professor, there is one matter regarding the insectoid battlefield that still eludes me. Jiang Yin responded, taken aback. Mo Li took a deep breath, clearly concerned about this particular issue, which Jiang Yin had failed to clarify amidst his earlier discourse. You spoke extensively, yet barely mentioned the star coin, and you have not elaborated on the exchange rate. Jiang Yin's expression momentarily froze in disbelief. Mo Li, noticing his reaction, seemed a touch embarrassed, his cheeks tinged with a faint hue. You know, I am rather mundane. My interest lies solely in the star coin. You, Jiang Yin stammered, pointing an unsteady finger at Mo Li. Was it possible that amidst his elaborate exposition, Mo Li had absorbed not a single word of significance? Why, then, did he wear such a solemn expression? Jiang Yin had never before felt such a sense of exasperation, his trembling fingers still directed at Mo Li, yet he struggled to articulate a third word. Exchange rate. Exchange rate. Mo Li assumed Jiang Yin had not heard him clearly and hastily repeated, emphasizing the term exchange rate. In that moment, Jiang Yin felt as though he might faint from sheer frustration. He gasped for breath, his vision blurring, and he fleetingly glimpsed a familiar, benevolent visage. In the next instant, darkness enveloped him, and he collapsed to the ground. Mo Li's expression shifted as he observed this, his concern evident. Professor, he exclaimed. Alas, his health is still somewhat precarious. It must be due to the late nights he endured recently. Xuanji, please summon a doctor. Professor Zhang's room alarm has been activated automatically, rendering our presence unnecessary. Moreover, I suspect there is a 99% chance that Professor Zhang is agitated by you. Impossible. I am not. I did not. Do not speak recklessly. I could accuse you of slander. Mo Li denied the accusation vehemently, as he merely inquired about the exchange rate between star coins and military merits. How could Jiang Yin possibly be vexed by such a trivial question? However, in his current state of confusion, Jiang Yin seems to lack any means to gather information regarding the Zerg battlefield. Fortunately, after analyzing what Jiang Yin had conveyed, Xuanji reached a decision. Only children make choices. A mature AI desires it all. I concur with this sentiment. Mo Li's gaze was intense. Damn it, this group of star thieves is indeed wealthy. Through Jiang Yan's words, Xuanji utilized the elevated privileges Mo Li had acquired within the academy to search for these foreign forces, leaving Mo Li utterly captivated. These foreign entities, although seemingly less formidable than the Federal Empire, actually control several star systems, with wealth amounting to trillions. Initially thought to be mere small-time star thieves, it is astonishing to discover the vast scale they have developed into. Upon reviewing the map, Mo Li's expression turned grave. These foreign forces have long engaged in nefarious activities, harassing the borders of the Imperial Federation. They are deserving of extermination. Would you not agree, Xuanji? Xuanji? Receiving no response, Mo Li furrowed his brow. Why does Xuanji always undermine the situation at such critical moments? The foreign forces are distributed throughout the chaotic star regions, beyond the reach of the Federal Empire, where dozens of these entities are entrenched, alongside several superpowers. We are located in the Dongli star system, at the easternmost edge of the Federation, requiring passage through the Yunming star region, the Inua star region, and then crossing the Beiluo star region to reach their chaotic domain. The journey necessitates traversing 237 star gates, with a total of 4 months of hyperspace travel planned. When shall we embark? Chapter 66, Journey to the Chaotic Star Region. What? You can travel that swiftly? Naturally, I am the supercomputer of the Yanlong Empire. Mo Li felt overwhelmed. 3 vast star regions, the distance is immense, necessitating thorough preparation. The sheer number of star gates is daunting, and the duration of hyperspace travel suggests that it will take no less than half a year to traverse. Moreover, the original spacecraft will certainly not suffice. Such long-distance voyages could encounter any number of unforeseen circumstances, making larger vessels, or those from shipping companies, the optimal choice. The cosmos is not as tranquil as it appears. Countless invisible radiation bursts and various celestial activities pose the greatest dangers during travel. Some shipping companies maintain their own routes, ensuring safety and the ability to quickly locate and provide assistance in case of emergencies. All of this requires funding. For this journey, if we are to bring mechs, we must also coordinate with the shipping company. Fortunately, my status as an academy mentor alleviates potential issues. Xuanji, you have already mapped out the route. I trust you have also prepared for the mode of travel? The best option is to purchase tickets from the shipping company to the central Yunming star region, then transfer within the Yunming star region to board a direct ship to the Beiluo star region. Mo Li furrowed her brow. This mode of travel was undoubtedly efficient, yet it bore its inherent drawbacks. The mechas on board the spacecraft were subject to centralized control. Should any mishap occur, her life would be at the mercy of others. When space pirates launched assaults on vessels, their primary target was invariably the mecha hangar. Once a spaceship navigating the cosmos was taken hostage, the capture of the mecha hangar left little room for recovery. Relying solely on onboard weaponry was insufficient to repel those agile mechas. This was Mo Lee's chief concern. The prevalence of space pirates in this era was staggering. Even the ships of prominent transport companies faced pirate encounters nearly every voyage. In the age of interstellar travel, one could easily conceal a vessel within the vastness of the starry sea, rendering space pirates virtually inexhaustible. However, Xianji could commandeer the ship. Even if they encountered pirates beyond the capabilities of their shipping company, once Mo Lee grasped a mecha, she could still engage in battle, albeit with numerous uncertainties. What if they were to purchase a ship instead? Alas, no star coins were available. Xianji promptly declined. Compared to buying a ship, the cost of traveling aboard a transport company's vessel was remarkably economical. Mo Lee rolled her eyes. Surely Xianji was aware of the absence of star coins. However, having already spent what they had, there was no alternative. A thought struck Mo Lee. What about custom mechas? If they were to tailor their own, would it be feasible? Absolutely not. Manufacturing their own would expose far too much, while the minor gadgets used for settling blood debts might escape scrutiny. The technology within a heavenly punishment-grade mecha would incite madness. The Federation and the Empire had long believed in the existence of other civilizations. Xianji approached the matter with caution, and the technology from the Star River Academy was not to be underestimated. In any case, they could trust them this once. Upon hearing this, Mo Lee recognized the naivety of her thoughts. Xianji, upon realizing Mo Lee's intentions to utilize specific technologies in the new mecha, understood the potential uproar that could ensue. Nevertheless, Xianji had a contingency plan. They could wait until the Academy produced the mechas and then install the enhancements themselves, ensuring that those who witnessed the modifications would be rendered incapable of causing issues. Mo Lee's eyes brightened at this prospect. Having made a decision, she knew it was imperative to communicate the subsequent arrangements with the Academy. This communication primarily involved Qin Wanga, as Jiang Yan remained unresponsive. Qin Wanga was aware of Mo Lee's impending departure, but merely pressed her lips together, choosing not to elaborate. Instructor, please take care. Ha ha ha, currently, no one possesses the capability to eliminate your instructor. Mo Lee's words were infused with confidence, courtesy of Shi Fangji. She had never been one to procrastinate. Having resolved to venture into the chaotic star domain, she would act without delay. With Jiang Yan still unconscious, Mo Lee did not linger. They could connect through the star network, and to those awaiting her lectures at the Academy, she could only promise to return next time. Dongli Star. This was the principal planet of the Dongli Star domain, renowned for its bustling prosperity. Countless space stations and colossal spaceports adorned the expanse of outer space surrounding the planet. In the age of interstellar travel, advancements in space navigation are remarkable, with large vessels designed for long-distance voyages docked at spaceports situated far from planets. Between these spaceports, small ships flit about like schools of fish in the ocean. Haha, are you heading to the Yunming Star region? Indeed, the Yunming Star region is splendid. A middle-aged pilot converses with Mo Lee aboard a small shuttle navigating the spaceport. I visited the Yunming Star region once. It was bustling with activity, and I felt as if I had come from the countryside. Is that so? I must experience it for myself. Absolutely. Which shipping company did you choose, young man? Chen's Star Travel. Chen's, you say? That's excellent. Here, Chen's shipping company is regarded as the safest option. They have yet to be targeted by space pirates. The talkative driver continued. Let me tell you, when you travel with Chen's, you need not purchase a luxury cabin. Even the standard accommodations are quite comfortable and significantly more affordable. Chen's has thrived over the years by offering low prices and high-quality service. However, their tickets are in high demand. You are quite fortunate to have secured one. Mo Lee smiled silently. The tickets for Chen's Star Travel were provided free of charge due to his status as an instructor at the Academy. Despite being a fortress-level pilot, his standing within the Academy was less significant, but outside, it held considerable weight. Within the Academy, fortress-level pilots were common, as it attracted talents and pilots from across the Dongli Star region. However, when considering the region as a whole, such individuals were indeed rare. The driver was evidently unaware that one of his passengers was a super pilot, and as they conversed, they soon arrived at the exclusive spaceport for Chen's Star Travel. From a distance, Mo Lee could discern the emblem belonging to the Chen family, a clear indication of their wealth. Adjacent to the spaceport was a space city, a testament to the family's endeavors, merely the tip of the iceberg of their extensive empire. After the driver docked the shuttle and disembarked Mo Lee, he departed. Following the information provided by Xuanji, Mo Lee proceeded to the mecha storage area. Hello, I am here to retrieve my mecha. Greetings, you wish to collect your mecha? Please present your transport number. In the mecha storage area, a dedicated staff member approached. Mo Lee presented his transport number to a woman who wore a professional smile. The woman retrieved a terminal to scan Mo Lee's transport number. As the results emerged, her previously composed smile froze, and her hands began to tremble. Noticing her prolonged silence, Mo Lee inquired, "What is the matter?" To his surprise, the woman suddenly looked up, her gaze piercing like a spotlight. "You are Instructor Mo Lee." Yes. That's me." Startled, Mo Lee instinctively took a step back as she leaned closer, exclaiming, "Really? I can't believe I have encountered you." Her excitement was palpable. "Instructor Mo Lee, once we received your mecha for transport, we prepared everything for you. You have purchased a standard VIP ticket. But we are pleased to offer you a complimentary upgrade to a premium VIP status, along with a dedicated storage space for your mech's blood debt." The woman spoke with rapid fervor, her bright eyes seemingly fixated on Mo Lee. Noticing Mo Lee's slight retreat, she appeared to recognize her own exuberance and quickly stepped back. Explaining that Chin's Interstellar Travel highly values your travel experience and had specifically instructed them to ensure clarity upon your mech's retrieval. "Please follow me. The premium VIPs have a separate boarding passage, as does your mech." When it came to storing the blood debt, Mo Lee did not conceal the fact that the mech's model had to be disclosed to the shipping company, making it easy for Chins to ascertain his identity. However, the sentiment behind this gesture was commendable. At least it brought a measure of comfort to Mo Lee. Following the woman to complete the boarding procedures for the mech, she guided Mo Lee onto the ship. This journey would be aboard the flagship vessel of Chin's Interstellar Travel, the Deep Space Ark, Crystalline Dome model. This magnificent spaceship spans 112 kilometers in length and has a maximum diameter of 41 kilometers, accommodating up to 80,000 passengers at full capacity. It boasts the Gaia Cycle V-type ecological dome system, which can sustain the needs of its passengers for 50 years without energy replenishment, essentially functioning as a flying city in space. The ship is propelled by the Zero Epoch Drive Array, powered by energy from an antimatter reactor, enabling it to swiftly enter warp speed post-departure from the Stargate. With the premium VIP status provided by Chin's Interstellar Travel, Mo Lee enjoyed the privilege of boarding without the need to queue, with arrangements made throughout the process. Once aboard, Mo Lee observed that the interior of the ship bore little resemblance to anything less than a small city, complete with forests and lakes. His premium VIP suite featured a scenic balcony overlooking the lake, accompanied by a dedicated butler. Chin's Interstellar Travel had assembled dozens of butlers in a line for Mo Lee to choose from. Among them was a slender young man also selecting. The butlers, both male and female of various ages, were uniformly attired, with the men in suits and the women in maid outfits. Mo Lee's gaze lingered on a tall, robust elderly man with white hair and a beard. He was nearly taken aback, recognizing an old acquaintance, Seabass. "Is that you, Seabass?" Mo Lee exclaimed, startled as the man before him revived distant memories. In that instant, Mo Lee knew he had made his choice. Him, he indicated towards Seabass. The man who had accompanied Mo Lee was equally astonished, for not just anyone could attain the status of a premium VIP at chance. For instance, the man ahead of Mo Lee was the illegitimate son of a certain politician, boasting an impressive background, while those present were unaware of Mo Lee's own esteemed lineage. However, these younger nobles typically seek out young and beautiful maids when looking for a steward. How could they possibly choose an elderly man like him? His impeccable demeanor rendered his expression rather neutral. When Mo Lee addressed him, he stepped forward with an upright posture, one hand clenched behind his back. "It is my honor to serve you. During the course of our journey, should you require anything, do not hesitate to summon me. My name is..." Just as he was about to reveal his name, Mo Lee looked at him with a hint of anticipation. "Could you be called Sebastian?" The man paused, but recognizing it as the request of a distinguished guest, he acquiesced. "If you find it agreeable, you may call me Sebastian for the duration of your stay." "Ha! Excellent." Mo Lee responded cheerfully. "Sebastian, please guide me to my accommodations." At this, Sebastian slightly bowed his head and proceeded ahead. Xianji, witnessing this exchange, could only sigh. "Your peculiar tastes remain unchanged, I see. You simply do not understand." With Sebastian's assistance, Mo Lee quickly settled in, and soon they awaited the departure of the spaceship. Passengers were permitted to board early, as the vessel was well equipped with all necessary amenities. Many arrived ahead of time to ensure they would not be late. While Mo Lee arrived on the final day, the following day, the Deep Space Ark would embark. This was not Mo Lee's first experience aboard such a colossal ship, so he felt little astonishment. However, many first-time travelers curiously peered out of the panoramic windows as the ship set sail. Mo Lee, on the other hand, donned his Star Network device and immersed himself in the digital realm. First, he checked on Qin Wangji's progress, and then sought information regarding the chaotic star domain. Xianji had previously gathered substantial data about that region, and now Emoli wished to explore online evaluations of the chaotic star domain. Upon review, he gleaned a general understanding of what to expect: chaotic, disordered, a haven for space marauders. After reading, Emoli felt somewhat reassured. It appeared to be a domain where strength reigned supreme, and fortuitously, he possessed some measure of power. He should manage to survive once he arrived there. The deep space arc traversed from the Dongli star domain to the central Yunmeng star domain, taking over a month. During this journey, they encountered a few space pirates, but the two fortress-level pilots guarding the ship swiftly repelled them, ensuring the voyage remained unaffected. The final destination was not the main star of the Yunmeng star domain, which is slightly larger than Dongli. Rather, it was located at the edge of the two star domains, near one of the star gates. Upon arrival, Emoli bid farewell to Sebastian, who had proven to be an impeccable steward over the past month. Truly a perfect model of a butler. Chapter 64. Encountering Sebastian again, Emoli found himself contemplating the idea of recruiting Sebastian as an agent, for he was indeed an ideal representative. With a burgeoning reputation of his own, Emoli believed Sebastian could assist him in managing numerous affairs. Alas, at present, Emoli was devoid of funds and possessed nothing but his abilities. He certainly could not suggest Sebastian take on the role of a son. Thus, Emoli merely offered a brief farewell before boarding the spacecraft bound for the main star of the Yunmeng star domain. For only there could one find the colossal vessels capable of traversing the vastness between two major star regions. The journey to the Yunmeng main star was predominantly via star gates, consuming little time, and he arrived in just 3 days. The Yunmeng star system is enveloped in a nebula, and upon passing through the vibrant clouds of color, one could behold 3 planets orbiting a blindingly white star. These planets are grand in scale. One, a striking blend of blue and green, is a quintessential life-sustaining world, while another, nearly identical, is renowned as the Yunmeng twin stars. The third planet, situated further from the star, is a frigid rocky orb adorned with a steel ring, encircled by numerous space stations and ports, with ships traversing the expanse like fish in a stream. Emoli's destination was the ring of this icy planet. The Yunmeng twin stars are characterized by their scarcity of technological traces, possessing a unique magnetic field that enhances the innate resonance between individuals and mechas within its confines. In the Yunmeng star domain, the twin stars are revered as a holy land, a breeding ground for prodigies, and a hub of elite pilots. In this somewhat legendary star region, Emoli had no intention of lingering. Upon landing, he set about procuring a ticket to the chaotic star domain. Such places are seldom visited, and the ticket he managed to acquire was for 3 days hence. However, while purchasing the ticket, he unexpectedly encountered Seabass. He was situated in the official ticketing hall established by the Yunmeng star system, where it turned out that only locals could buy tickets here, much to Emoli's astonishment, as he had initially planned to purchase online. Upon learning this information, he was taken aback, though he soon recalled the dismal state of the Federation's parliamentary system and felt enlightened. Seabass, Emoli greeted, and Seabass, who was in the midst of his ticket purchase, turned at the familiar voice. "Mr. Emoli, what a coincidence," he replied, surprised to see Emoli in this venue. Regarding the title Seabass, he seemed to harbor no particular objections. After a month of acquaintance, he had come to understand Emoli's character, realizing that the formality was merely a playful quirk. Seabass had been a steward for many years and had encountered numerous individuals. However, those who traveled with Chen Star Travel were either immensely wealthy or wielded great power, each displaying varying attitudes. Some were difficult to converse with, while others appeared gentle, yet prolonged interactions often revealed their true natures. Seabass had witnessed individuals who were amiable to all, exuding a refreshing charm, only to later receive requests for companionship at night. The women sent to the captain that evening were never seen again aboard the ship. However, Seabass had grown accustomed to such matters, for in his perspective, these individuals merely concealed their true nature. The essence of humanity is inherently brutal. Some choose to display it openly, while others prefer to mask it. Ultimately, they are not dissimilar. Yet, Emoli was genuinely unique. Perhaps it was the fortunate chance to encounter Emoli in this place. Or maybe the years of saved earnings had finally sufficed for him to venture to that destination, but a semblance of a smile broke through Seabass's stoic demeanor. "By the heavens, your smile is rather peculiar," Emoli remarked, as he was never one to gauge others' moods. Seabass, sensing that familiar scent, felt his lips twitch involuntarily, rendering his smile even more grotesque. Emoli could only offer a quip before inquiring curiously, "Aren't you boarding the ship? Where are you headed?" "To a place I've long desired to visit," Seabass replied with a tone tinged with profundity. "Traveling, perhaps?" In a manner of speaking, he conceded, although the glimmer of yearning was absent from his gaze. "Ah, travel sounds splendid. I am preparing to make a grand endeavor in the Chaos Star region." "The Chaos Star region?" Seabass exclaimed in astonishment. Mr. Mo, that is hardly a favorable destination. Your strength is considerable, yet you remain but a lone wolf. There, in the Chaos Star region, trust is a rare commodity. Strangers become the adversaries of all space pirates. Even if you are formidable, they will not relent. Instead, they will lurk nearby, biding their time. They are ruthless, cunning, and exceedingly patient, and your abilities as a pilot are limited when you are not in your mech. Seabass, agitated, spoke fervently, but Mo Lee's attention was captured by another aspect. You seem quite familiar with the Chaos Star region? Seabass fell silent, as if contemplating his response. After a long pause, he gently nodded, indeed. With a soft sigh, Seabass continued, once upon a time, I lived in the Chaos Star region. This revelation took Mo Lee by surprise. Seabass's demeanor and character bore no resemblance to someone hailing from such a place. Who would have thought, Seabass, that you, with your prominent brows and bright eyes, emerged from the Chaos Star region? Upon sharing this, Seabass anticipated emotions of disdain, hatred, or indifference from Mo Lee, yet was met with an unexpected reaction. Shouldn't those from the Chaos Star region be universally reviled? Mo Lee chuckled heartily, patting Seabass on the shoulder. If one's birthplace could irrevocably define them, then this world would be devoid of distant horizons and possibilities. Horizons. Seabass murmured, somewhat lost in thought. Indeed, the potentialities of life, the distant horizons one can reach, comprise the essence of existence. However, Seabass, you aren't intending to use that ticket to venture into the Chaos Star region, are you? Seabass gazed at his hands. I wish to return. Oh, Mo Lee elongated his tone, then assumed a boxing stance, throwing a couple of mock punches. Do you have enemies there? Tell me, and I shall help you eliminate them. Witnessing Mo Lee's spirited demeanor, for reasons unknown, Seabass felt an inexplicable lightness. No need. I shall deal with him with a single punch. Well, since you are also heading to the Chaos Star region, why not accompany me? I have a ticket for this flight. Then I would be most grateful for your assistance. Mr. Mo, Seabass replied, standing tall with one hand over his heart and bowing slightly. Mo Lee gazed in astonishment, enthusiastically patting Seabass on the shoulder, exclaiming, Seabass, you truly resemble a dear friend of mine. Seabass chuckled helplessly, replying, Mr. Mo, this marks the 21st time I've heard you say that in just over a month. They exchanged a knowing smile, having reached a mutual understanding. 3 days later, both embarked upon a spacecraft, one akin to the Deep Space Ark, albeit larger and equipped with superior engines. Mo Lee and Seabass's quarters were interconnected. However, once aboard, Mo Lee devoted most of his time to conversing with Jiang Yin over the star network. In truth, Mo Lee had already established contact with Jiang Yin during his time on the Deep Space Ark to discuss the customization of a mech. Jiang Yin had several proposals for Mo Lee's consideration, all of which were promptly dismissed by Mo Lee. This time, it was Jiang Yin who initiated contact with Mo Lee. Appearing somewhat fatigued as he communicated, I visited the Academy's technology repository and found a suitable technology. Intrigued, Mo Lee harbored some preliminary ideas regarding the Divine Punishment class mech, but upon sharing them with Jiang Yin, the latter had dismissed them as impossible. After over a month of discussions yielding no results, Mo Lee contemplated settling for something less ambitious, only to be surprised that Jiang Yin had indeed discovered a viable plan. You requested a high-speed transmission system. Yet no one has ventured into this area of research. Based on your described specifications, even a Star Ring-class pilot might struggle to handle such agility. I am an athlete, quite robust. I can manage this level of exertion, Mo Lee replied with utmost seriousness. Jiang Yan's expression darkened. But given that Mo Lee had demonstrated his capabilities on the Star Network, it suggested he could indeed execute such maneuvers. This technology was sourced from a defunct research project where they whimsically attempted to create animal-type mechs, and this particular technology was intended for their limbs. Animal type? Mo Lee pondered, somewhat perplexed. Such mechs existed in the Empire of the Flame Dragons, even representing a formidable branch, yet he had not encountered them here. Indeed, the compatibility of animal-type mechs with the empathy system is exceedingly low, making it challenging to harness their full potential. Moreover, even if they could, humanoid mechs are not inferior by any means, Jiang Yin remarked, slightly shaking his head, viewing the animal type as a failed endeavor. Mo Lee, however, held a different opinion, recognizing the many merits of the animal-type mechs in the Empire of the Flame Dragons. While they exhibited pronounced specialization, maximizing their unique strengths could yield impressive results. However, before integrating with the empathy system, one must familiarize themselves with the animal's behavioral patterns. Otherwise, the empathy efficiency could plummet from 100 to 70. Let us set this aside for now. We have resolved the transmission system's technology, yet the material issue remains significant. Such high-frequency transmission will impose greater stress on the materials, resulting in a substantially heavier mech. Upon hearing this, Mo Lee furrowed his brow. An increase in the mech's weight would signify a rise in engine energy consumption, a reality that was somewhat intolerable for him. He indeed possesses suitable materials. However, material science serves as the cornerstone of the entire mech manufacturing industry. The emergence of more advanced material technologies could unleash untold chaos and bloodshed. Emily dismissed this thought, deciding to observe for now, as there was no urgency. Yet, should you not be departing from the Yunming star domain? The Chaos star domain is perilous. I shall expedite the construction of your mech. There is no rush. The blood debts are sufficient. Emoli had perused the information on the Chaos star domain and concluded that the locals posed little threat to him, especially with the presence of the 10 directions of silence. He treated the entire affair as a leisurely excursion. After discussing mechs for a while longer, they ended the communication. Seabass is looking for you, Xuanji's voice resonated. Moli exited the star network, and upon opening the door, he found Seabass waiting outside. Mr. Mo, it is now the 4th day of our voyage. We are about to leave the bounds of the Yunming star domain and enter the Inua star domain. Even after leaving the deep space arc, Seabass seemed to retain some of his butler habits, such as waiting at the door for Emoli to dine, and reporting information regarding the voyage as he did now. Just call me Emoli, he replied with a hint of resignation. What as for dinner today? I understand the restaurant is offering specialties from the Yunza star system today. If we head over within the next 10 minutes, we should catch them fresh out of the kitchen. Emoli's eyes lit up. What are we waiting for? Let us go. The ship traversed the Inua star domain for over a month, most of which was spent in warp travel. As the number of stargates sharply diminished upon exiting the Yunming star domain, Seabass remarked that the Inua star domain was relatively impoverished, with most of the wealth concentrated in the hands of a few senators, resulting in a significant disparity between the rich and the poor. Many planets within the domain had populations unable to leave their surfaces. However, in contrast, the senators of the Inua star domain were considerably wealthier than ordinary senators. Seabass, you are quite knowledgeable, Emoli expressed with surprise. While Xuanji could access a wealth of information from the network, some insights, such as the one Seabass shared regarding this senator, remained elusive online. Senator Tucker is likely the wealthiest among them. At that moment, the two were seated beside a porthole in the ship's corridor, engaged in a game of Go. Seabass was intrigued by this unique game introduced by Emoli, and on the board, he perceived changes as vast as the cosmos. Lifting a white stone, Seabass furrowed his brow. It was rumored that Tucker traveled with the protection of 2-star ring-class mechs, an astonishing standard for a senator. Moreover, each year, Tucker dispatched numerous low-ranking mech pilots to the Zerg battlefront. No one knew the origins of such a vast number of pilots, but their sheer quantity triggered a qualitative change. Among them, 2 singularity-level pilots belonged to Tucker. Though it was unspoken, all were aware of their loyalty to Tucker. How do you know? Emoli inquired, placing his stone immediately after Seabass's move, causing Seabass's brow to twist into a frown. Because the pilots he sends to the Zerg battlefront are all death warriors. This transforms the battlefield of the Zerg into a whetstone, yet does no one dare to speak against him? To create obstacles, perhaps? Seabass shook his head slightly, asserting that it would not happen, for he dispatched only low-level pilots. Those 2 singularity-level pilots have been advancing rapidly, and by the time the other council members realize, these 2 pilots would have already established their foothold among the Zerg. Emoli raised an eyebrow, sensing that this Tucker possesses considerable ambition. Indeed, and his influence extends widely within the Radiant Twilight star domain. Our current location is firmly within his territory. Could it be that this vessel is required to pay a protection fee? Emoli pondered whimsically. Yes, Seabass confirmed. The 66th Counselor dispute ensued. Emoli tilted her head in surprise at Seabass, questioning the audacity of this counselor. The statuses among the council members are relatively comparable. Yet Tucker stands out as quite formidable, possessing numerous private armed forces. Even the vessels from the Dreaming Cloud star domain must show him respect. Emoli, intrigued, considered that according to Seabass, this counselor wields tremendous power in the Radiant Twilight star domain. As the ship halted at a star gate within the Radiant Twilight star domain a day later, Seabass's assertions were corroborated. The stop was not listed among the scheduled stops of the shipping company, and while the ship lingered, Emoli observed a fleet materializing outside the porthole. This is indeed to collect protection fees, Emoli exclaimed, watching as small vessels approached, flanked by mecha sentinels. Quite a marvel. Are they so brazen as to not fear the other counselors? Seabass stood 2 paces behind Emoli, stating that the counselor backing the shipping company we were traveling with was not aligned with Tucker. At this moment, he too noticed the mecha, his brow furrowing in concern. Trouble was brewing. Typically, it is the personnel aboard the ship who engage in negotiations, but now that the mecha have been deployed, they must be seeking more. Truly insatiable, he remarked. At that instant, an announcement echoed throughout the ship, instructing passengers to return to their quarters and refrain from venturing outside. Exchanging glances, the two retreated to their respective rooms. Xuanji, what is the situation? Mo Li inquired. Xuanji remained silent, projecting a holographic screen before Mo Li, revealing two mecha armed with high-energy explosive cannons disembarking from the ship, while two individuals in the uniforms of the ship's crew approached to greet them. Simultaneously, a voice resounded. My lords, we should have completed this year's protection fee in full. The two mecha disregarded their words, advancing directly toward them. Faced with such imposing figures, the two crew members dared not obstruct their path and could only step aside, hastily following behind. My lords, might there be a misunderstanding? One of them ventured. We suspect that your vessel conceals contraband. According to the latest decree issued 3 months ago by the Radiant Twilight Star Domain, all vessels under suspicion must be halted for inspection. An excuse seemingly fabricated on the spot left the two crew members momentarily stunned. Yet the mecha bore the emblem of the Talker family, rendering them even less inclined to intervene. How could this be? Our company ensures that all cargo and passengers are thoroughly screened by the official security of the Cloud Dream Star region, guaranteeing the absence of any contraband. The two individuals, resigned to their fate, felt compelled to vacate the Cloud Dream Star region, attempting to halt the advance of the two mechs. Unfortunately, the opposing party had arrived with a clear purpose and paid little heed to such matters. The mech from the Talker family stationed themselves before the entrance of the corridor. Once the mech's lights dimmed and the engines fell silent, a figure emerged from the cockpit. A slender man with long hair and a pointed chin descended, his aggressive gaze scanning the surroundings. Silver Dog, hurry up, the long-haired man urged, noticing his companion had yet to appear. Coming. You're still as impatient as ever. Another figure, smaller in stature and appearing somewhat older with a slight hunch, also stepped down. After both had disembarked, they turned their attention to the two crew members who approached at a brisk pace. Lead us to the mech hangar. The recent unrest in the hidden Radiant Star region necessitates that we inspect all mechs. The crew members exchanged glances, their expressions revealing their distress. In this era, ordinary citizens still comprised the majority, while pilots held a position of high esteem. Their mech hangar was designated for the exclusive use of pilots, housing not only assault-class mechs, but even several fortress-class ones. Given that mechs serve as both weapons and the very essence of a pilot, divulging information about them was out of the question. I'm afraid that's not possible, one crew member replied, steeling himself. The mech hangar is private property of our esteemed guests, and we lack the authority to grant access. Is that so? The long-haired man's eyes widened in irritation as he stepped forward and seized the collar of one crew member. Do you know whose territory this is? Enough, long hair, Silver Dog intervened. We won't inspect the mech hangar. Let's proceed with the routine check of passenger information instead. It was evident that inspecting the mech hangar was merely an exercise in asserting dominance. Such matters were too crucial to the company's reputation to be easily revealed. Upon hearing that they would be reviewing passenger information, the crew members exhaled in relief and promptly led the two men away. Mo Li, observing the scene through the footage transmitted by Xuanji, felt a wave of confusion wash over him. What were they up to? The answer remained elusive. After Longhair and Silver Dog concluded their visit and collected another round of protection fees, they exited without further incident. The spacecraft roared back to life, and Mo Li and Seabass resumed their chess game. Yet, Mo Li couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Noticing Seabass's composed demeanor, he decided to voice his concerns. It seems they haven't done much. They merely came to collect passenger information. As Seabass was poised to make his move, he froze, his pupils narrowing. Rather than inquire how Mo Li had acquired this information, he asked earnestly, is the information credible? Indeed, this is problematic. Seabass returned the chess piece to the board. If this ship holds significant value, we will likely encounter a band of star pirates once we exit the hidden Radiant Star region. Observing Seabass's expression, which betrayed a deeper understanding of the situation, Mo Li inquired, why is that? The struggle among the senators. The Northern Fallen Star region and the hidden Radiant Star region have always been at odds, and friction between their senators is quite common. During assemblies, they often find themselves in opposition. Originally, the friction between the two factions of legislators was merely superficial. However, it has come to my attention that in recent years, Tokkul has nurtured a band of space pirates within the Northern Falling Star domain, who specialize in plundering vessels traversing from the hidden Radiance Star domain. Is it possible that the legislators in the Northern Falling Star domain are unaware of this? Unbeknownst to them, this band of space pirates operates under the protection of Tokkul, backed by a formidable information network, and they are armed with top-tier weaponry, allowing them to evade the relentless pursuits of the Northern Falling Star domain. Within the hidden Radiance Star domain, Tokkul utilizes passenger information to assess whether it is worth unleashing his pirates. Seabass gently twirled 2 pieces in his hand, pondering the situation. On our ship, there are approximately 5 fortress-level pilots, including yourself. If your reputation has not reached this place, that would be fortunate. However, I fear the ramifications should they become aware of your identity. The higher the influence of the prey, the more enticing it becomes for them to act. As Morley spoke, a sudden smile illuminated his face. Seabass looked up, sensing a hint of danger in his gaze. Indeed, this band of space pirates comprises 10 Fortress-level and 3 Retribution-level members. A configuration unknown to the outside world, resulting in numerous ships falling victim to their assaults. The presence of 3 Retribution-level pirates is a force that cannot be overlooked in any star domain, yet they roam freely in the northern falling star domain, plundering without restraint. To assert that Tackle's protection is absent in this scenario would be utterly implausible. In other words, this band of pirates operates as if they were the regular army of a legislator, possessing the finest technology, weaponry, and starships. Given this situation, confronting them 1 against 3 appears daunting. However, within the chaos of the space battlefield, there remains a sliver of operational flexibility, aided by the vector thrusters of blood debts. At this moment, Seabass remains oblivious to Morley's contemplation of how to tackle 3 adversaries simultaneously. Currently, there is insufficient information to ascertain whether our ship will become a target. Seabass furrowed his brow. Although instances of large vessels being seized by space pirates are rare, they are not unheard of. Coupled with the unsettling notion that Tackle is preparing to make moves in the hidden Radiant Star domain, Seabass cast a troubled glance toward Morley, expressing, "Mr. Morley, I fear that once we enter the northern falling star domain, we may need to disembark immediately." Disembark? Morley pondered, recognizing it as a viable option, yet simultaneously mulling over the potential wealth to be gained from vanquishing this band of pirates. As they set their sights on him, Morley also turned his gaze toward them. However, Seabass dared not entertain such thoughts. Lacking even a mech, he would face certain doom if confronted. Morley discerned his apprehensions and stated, "Very well. We shall disembark in the northern falling star domain and seek other ships to venture into the chaotic star domain." Seabass exhaled in relief, sensing Morley's hesitation, although he could not fathom the reason behind it. Upon entering the northern falling star domain, the ship docked at the first large star gate, and the 2 men disembarked accordingly. As they boarded the mech transport within the space city, Morley inquired, "What is our next step to reach the chaotic star domain?" "We do not travel with legitimate companies. The northern star domain connects with the chaotic star domain, where there is a significant infiltration by pirates from the latter, resulting in considerable disorder and numerous underground armed factions." "Are these individuals involved in transportation?" "Indeed." Seabass nodded slightly, revealing that several larger underground groups operate within the northern star domain, each conducting discrete business. Although we are boarding their spacecraft, which is somewhat pricey, it guarantees safety, as many pirates in the star domain are affiliated with them, and they refrain from attacking their vessels. "Say, Seabass, you weren't once a crime lord, were you?" M.O. Lee inquired, his mind leaping to conclusions. Seabass had grown accustomed to M.O. Lee's erratic thoughts. "Yes, really?" M.O. Lee exclaimed, surprised by the unexpected revelation. Seabass felt there was little to conceal from M.O. Lee, but upon witnessing the glimmer of gossiping curiosity in his eyes, he regretted his admission and swiftly added, "Don't ask, it's just a mundane reason." "Then why are you serving as a steward on the ship?" M.O. Lee promptly pressed. As expected, no sooner had he spoken than M.O. Lee's curiosity surged forth. Seabass sighed in exasperation, but fortunately, the mecha tow vehicle soon reached its destination, and they transferred at the spaceport. Luck favored them as a ship heading toward the chaotic star domain was available. After disembarking from the tow vehicle, M.O. Lee observed the individuals around him, noting their distinct demeanor compared to regular passengers. Firstly, their aura indicated a heightened vigilance towards others. Conversations were scarce, and those who did converse spoke in hushed tones. M.O. Lee's arrival drew considerable attention due to the mecha on the tow vehicle, which was evidently of a high tier. Consequently, when he proceeded to handle the storage procedures, these individuals instinctively parted to clear a path for him. M.O. Lee felt a stir of realization. He had begun to grasp some of the unspoken rules of the northern star domain and the chaotic star domain. After managing the mecha storage, it was time to board the ship. As expected, the underground group's transportation lacked the extensive services of legitimate shipping companies. M.O. Lee and Seabass were assigned a rather fine suite, primarily due to M.O. Lee's registration of a Fortress-class mecha. In the course of interstellar travel, advanced mecha pilots like them were quite sought after. During the voyage, the ship becomes a solitary island in the cosmos, should they encounter pirates. The shipping company would be at a disadvantage, and these pilots would likely intervene. No one desires a ship to be destroyed, leaving them to drift through space. The presence of an advanced pilot augments their safety. "This should be the finest suite they can offer," Seabass remarked after inspecting the room. "Really?" M.O. Lee was taken aback, having assumed that these individuals were somewhat casual, yet carried an air of arrogance. He had thought that Fortress-class pilots enjoyed such privileges. But Seabass informed him that this was indeed the best they could provide. The ship's security comprised a fortress-class and 3 assault-class guards, which was fairly standard. However, the true strength of their protection lay in the emblem of the Star Sea Angler Group. Emily strolled around the first-class cabin. The facilities were only average. But given the underground group's nature, it was clear they would not invest in regular maintenance expenses. They are not lacking passengers at all. In fact, some passengers even eagerly request to board their spacecraft. Once the two settled in, they awaited the departure of the ship. This type of spacecraft resembled a black vessel. Lacking in pretentiousness, it would set sail as soon as it was filled. As the thrusters ignited, the ship departed the spaceport, trailing a blazing tail flame. And Emily promptly entrusted the control to Xianji. Whether it was the Chun Star Line or the spacecraft acquired within the Yunming Star Domain, Emily always let Xianji take over, as he did not wish to be caught off guard by space pirates while he was asleep and oblivious. With Xianji now at the helm, the crimson glow of the electronic eyes in the mech hangar flared to life before gradually dimming. The spacecraft indeed lived up to Seabass's words. Upon sighting it, space pirates opted not to attack. Through Xianji's scans, Emily discovered that after traversing merely 5-star gates, they had encountered 3 groups of pirates. However, these individuals remained within the ship's detection range, and those aboard were aware of their presence, as if a tacit understanding had been reached, allowing both parties to coexist peacefully. As the ship continued its journey, on the 3rd day, Molly observed through the star network that the very vessel they had previously boarded encountered misfortune shortly after entering the Bay Luo star domain. Considering the delay in information, it was likely that this ship had met with the pirates on its very first day in the star domain. Just then, Seabass emerged from his room, wearing an expression that suggested he had anticipated this outcome. Well done, Seabass, you predicted it. Seabass's lips curled slightly. Interacting with Emily was indeed quite effortless, and he instinctively relaxed, acknowledging the high probability of such a scenario given the fierce competition among the counselors. With Tackle being notably vengeful. Chapter 68. The attack, however, a supermassive passenger ship, Emily gazed forlornly out the window. The power struggles among the counselors have always been this way. The lives of ordinary individuals are merely numbers to them. Seabass shook his head slightly. Emily, however, paid no heed, remaining in a state of distress. At this moment, Xianji had already begun calculating. A supermassive passenger ship under my control could navigate independently without issue, coupled with 3 Punisher-class mechs and Fortress-class mechs, when calculated. Stop. Do not calculate. Emily hurriedly interjected, for the very thought of the figures made his heart ache. Seabass noted that Emily often appeared lost in thought, and when he did, his expression would turn peculiar, as if someone unseen was provoking him. Thus, in these moments, Seabass would remain silent, patiently waiting. Moments later, Emily regained his focus. Just as Xianji's voice resonated in his mind. Detection of an unidentified fleet approaching. Preliminary assessment indicates space pirates. Under normal circumstances, Xianji would not alert them about ordinary pirates, since Xianji mentioned it. It implied that this group of pirates were either not known to the anglers of the Star Sea or belonged to a rival faction. The bridge was in disarray. These individuals were inept, merely sailing under the company's emblem, and when confronted with pirates who disregarded such insignias, they were rendered helpless. Upon hearing Xianji's report, Emily's heart sank. Indeed, the spacecraft of these underground factions proved to be unreliable. His expression grave, he spoke to Seabass, revealing that a group of star pirates, disregarding the Sea of Stars angler badges, had arrived. Seabass' countenance shifted subtly. Despite the ship's lack of response, he chose to place his trust in the situation. If the pirates boasting 50 Sea of Stars angler badges had indeed come, there would at least be 2 Fortress-class vessels among them. However, the legislators had recently intensified their crackdown on the band of pirates led by Tackle, making it unlikely that any ordinary pirate would dare to surface during such tumultuous times. As Seabass spoke, the ship abruptly halted. Mr. Mo, based on my understanding of these underground factions, the personnel in the cockpit may be indifferent to our fates. They might have already abandoned ship, he declared. We must first head to the Mecha Bay, forcibly reclaim our mechas, and I will seize a small spacecraft from the hangar. Emily was taken aback, for at that moment, Xuanji reported that the crew on the bridge had begun to flee. Meanwhile, the other passengers remained oblivious to the unfolding chaos, curiously emerging from their quarters. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Emily nodded in agreement. All right. You go and commandeer the small spacecraft. I will search for the mecha. The Mecha Bay and the small spacecraft were not situated on the same level, prompting the two to part ways. With Xuanji's presence, Emily navigated his path unimpeded. On the other side, Seabass was also sprinting through the corridor, while the passengers, unaware of the crisis, regarded him with curiosity. Seabass paid them no mind. His towering figure moved with such swiftness that he resembled a gust of wind, leaving many only able to catch a fleeting shadow as he dashed past. Recalling the ship's layout from memory, he passed through several automatically opening hatches until he arrived at one marked as the emergency passage. Taking a deep breath, he noted that the door showed no signs of opening. Clenching his fist, his gaze steeled, he was poised to take the next step when, suddenly, the door swung open. For a brief moment of confusion, Seabass had no time to ponder and charged inside. Behind the passage, a crew member clad in the ship's uniform appeared, caught off guard by the door's sudden opening. Seeing Seabass rushing towards him, the man's expression shifted. Instinctively, he reached for his waist, only to be met with a swift fist. The impact was akin to a watermelon hitting the ground, splattering red and white everywhere. Seabass wiped the sticky residue from his face, his expression unchanging, and pressed on to the second door, which opened in response. Mr. Mo, Seabass thought, feeling a surge of determination as he continued to charge forward. Each subsequent hatch opened automatically as he approached, leading him to the chamber where the small spacecraft were docked, only to find a group of people gathered there. Upon closer inspection, he realized they were the ship's crew, huddled together, their emotions visibly heightened. Why is the ejection hatch sealed? Wasn't it pre-programmed? Where is the onboard AI? The silence was deafening. Seabass' cold gaze fixated on several individuals wielding electromagnetic rifles among the crew. Using the nearby platforms to shield himself from view, he stealthily approached the crowd, just as the ejection hatch in the distance swung open unexpectedly. The crowd gasped, instinctively turning their gazes towards the hatch. Seabass suddenly lunged forward, leaping onto a figure armed with an electromagnetic rifle. Both men tumbled out, but Seabass had already adjusted his stance, raising his elbow to deliver a fierce strike to the man's throat. With a sickening crack, the assailant fell silent. Meanwhile, the others had begun to dash towards the spacecraft, few noticing Seabass, and those who did paled in horror. They beheld Seabass grasping the electromagnetic rifle. With a series of swift shots, each accompanied by the sickening sound of a headshot, he felled several adversaries, including two wielding electromagnetic rifles. The chaos escalated. The open hatch appeared to be their sole escape. Seabass continued firing, eliminating those near the fallen rifles before rushing to retrieve one. Just then, some individuals prepared to board the ship, only to witness the hatch, a symbol of hope, slam shut with a thunderous thud. What is happening? Someone shouted. But at that moment, Seabass stood there, dual weapons in hand. The electromagnetic rifles against mere mortals resulted in a one-sided massacre. By the time they realized the turmoil behind them, Seabass was amidst a tableau of corpses, mercilessly continuing his onslaught. Lances of electromagnetic energy pierced their bodies, and the temperature gauge on the rifles surged dangerously high. The crew screamed and scattered, but Seabass's marksmanship was impeccable. He swiftly eliminated several armed foes, leaving the rest to flee. He showed no urgency in pursuing them, first stowing away the electromagnetic rifles before methodically dispatching each remaining individual. As the crew attempted to escape into the corridor, they discovered the hatch had inexplicably sealed shut. Suddenly, explosions echoed from outside the spacecraft, and a chill gripped Seabass's heart. The space pirates had begun their assault. Only 3 crew members remained, trembling behind a makeshift cover. A peculiar sound pierced the air. Seabass glanced at the 2 overheating electromagnetic rifles, frowning slightly. To the trio behind the cover, that sound was akin to celestial music, indicating that Seabass could no longer fire. The latent ferocity within the 3 surged forth, and they boldly charged from behind their cover, flanking Seabass. Leaning slightly forward, Seabass retained his overheating rifles, instead of discarding them. As one assailant drew near, he brought the overloaded rifle crashing against the man's face. The horrifying heat emitted a sizzling sound, and the excruciating pain compelled the man to grasp at Seabass's hand. The second assailant lunged at Seabass, who hurled the other electromagnetic rifle accurately at the attacker's face, the searing temperature forcing him to halt and clawed his burning skin. The remaining adversary rushed past his 2 scorched companions, but Seabass met him with a swift kick, sending him sprawling backward. Just as Seabass contemplated delivering a finishing blow, he noticed a massive figure hurtling toward him at high speed. With a resounding thud, akin to crushing a small stone, the figure revealed itself as Mo Lee's blood debt mecha. Unbeknownst to him that he had just eliminated one, Mo Lee halted beside the spacecraft. Hurry, hurry, they are coming. This diminutive vessel, comparable in size to the blood debt, was gripped firmly by Mo Lee as he urged Seabass to board swiftly. Seabass promptly complied. All the crew had abandoned ship, clearly aware that this band of space pirates was not to be trifled with. As Mo Lee approached, the ejection hatch opened, evidently the work of Xuanji, who had the entire spacecraft under his control. Operating the hatch was a trivial task for him. Once Seabass boarded the vessel, he discovered that his access had already been pre-configured. For him, navigating the spacecraft was second nature, after all. It would be rather amusing if a steward could not pilot a ship. At that moment, alarms blared, signaling that the ship was under attack, prompting the two to refrain from lingering and to exit through the ejection hatch. Mr. Mo, Seabass called out through a hastily established channel. I can hear you. The pirates are focused on the ship. They typically disregard those who flee. We must find a place to hide before summoning official support. Are you certain, Seabass? Emoli, gripping the side of the ship, cast a glance toward the distant mecha, his tone laced with a hint of sarcasm. At his words, Seabass instinctively gazed outside, his pupils narrowing. These are not ordinary space pirates. Indeed, Emoli relinquished his grip on the ship, activating the vector thrusters. This is a heavenly punishment class mecha. Seabass's pupils dilated in sudden realization. Before he could articulate further, Emoli surged forward. The pilot of the heavenly punishment class mecha, Oliver, had not anticipated such a bold approach. Engaged in boasting over the channel, upon seeing Emoli, he chuckled. A foolhardy bastion class has come my way. Allow me to deal with it. Boom. The sounds of battle in the vacuum are transformed into audible frequencies through specialized technology. The thrusters ignited as Oliver, without hesitation, fired 2 rounds from his electromagnetic cannons at the oncoming Emoli. In a split second, Emoli summoned the blood oath to shield himself. The 2 electromagnetic blasts scorched black marks upon the protective barrier. Emoli furrowed his brow, but continued to advance. Realizing that Emoli was a bastion class, Oliver remained vigilant. The magazine compartment beneath his armor opened, releasing dozens of small missiles, while simultaneously, he positioned his left arm to support his right, which began to morph into a particle cannon. Particles were frantically compressed at the cannon's mouth as Oliver locked onto Emoli while he evaded the oncoming missiles. The fire control system swiftly targeted Emoli's figure, yet the maneuverability he exhibited made Oliver sense something extraordinary. Something is amiss. Could it be that the opponent possesses a personal shield? Oliver remained vigilant, aware that the personal defensive shield could impeccably counteract the G-forces generated during the mech's maneuvers. Typically, this feature is standard for punishment-class mechs, while only a select few Fortress-class mechs can accommodate it, albeit at the cost of some engine performance. However, the opponent's power source appeared inexhaustible. Could this be a punishment-class mech? Yet, the ship registration information they had indicated it was Fortress-class. Never mind that. Oliver steeled himself. Regardless of who the adversary was, his mission today was to ensure that not a single soul escaped this vessel. The fire control system failed to lock onto Emoli, and the pursuing missiles were detonated by Emoli's chaff. Seeing that he could not achieve a lock, Oliver decided to cease charging and casually fired a round. The particle cannon traveled swiftly, nearly grazing Emoli's mech. Noticing that Emoli still did not activate his shield, Oliver's heart skipped a beat, a sense of unease creeping in. Drawing his combat knife, he simultaneously connected the energy supply. The knife shimmered with a faint blue glow as particles swirled around it, and Oliver adjusted his trajectory, charging towards Emoli. Witnessing this scene, Emoli wore a peculiar expression and, at the moment of their proximity, overloaded his engine. Oliver sensed the unpredictable nature of Emoli's tactics, heightening his sense of crisis. His years of flirting with death taught him that such an abrupt engine overload signaled either a desperate struggle or a confidence in swiftly overpowering him. Without hesitation, he too aimed to initiate an overload. But at that moment, Emoli's fist struck his transmission system with tremendous force. The personal defensive shield rippled, and Oliver's expression changed dramatically. He retreated without hesitation, activating his engine overload. The personal defensive shield? Emoli advanced, not granting him a chance to escape. At this point, Oliver was cursing under his breath. Where's the backup? There's a damn combat mech here. Hearing his voice, someone in the channel questioned. There's no punishment class mentioned in the information. Even if it were stop the nonsense. I'm in close combat. Oliver retreated frantically, with Emoli shadowing him closely. It seemed they had entered a contest of mech performance. Whoever withdrew from overload first would perish. Mad dog. Mad dog. Oliver cursed in frustration, previously wondering how this individual could maneuver so adeptly, only to realize he was up against a combat mech enthusiast. So focused on Emoli, he failed to notice a dark figure approaching at high speed from behind. The opponent activated their shield mid-flight, and as Oliver collided with it while retreating, the shadow materialized, revealing it to be the small mech piloted by Seabass. Great support, Seabass. With a sharp exhale, the blood pact reverberated. After the overload, the engine's energy surged violently, furiously pouring into the blood pact. As Emoli took advantage of Oliver's stabilization, he unleashed a punch from the side. Before Oliver could regain his balance, he felt himself being hurled backward. Although he was retreating, that figure was rapidly closing in. Boom. Another punch struck him, causing a violent tremor that severed the energy transmission in an instant. Then, he saw a flurry of fists magnifying before him. The defensive shield faltered momentarily before shattering abruptly. allowing the terrifying force to strike Oliver unimpeded. If the shield could not withstand the assault, how could his mortal form endure? After just a handful of blows, Oliver's consciousness succumbed to an eternal abyss. Gratitude is due to those who have shown their support. The esteemed Jiwen Guang of Qingshi Road for the explosive updates. Yu Hegi for the likes, Beichen No Lang for the likes, and Yushin Kawudeozi for the flowers. Heartfelt thanks to Daishin Fu's Wild Wolf Beast, Xingshan's Ding Zhan, Chusi, Qianyan, Luobi Qingxing Yu, and a Xing Hen Xing, alongside other generous patrons including Yazi, the diligent Ling Chun, and the culinary enthusiast Li Yong, among many others. Your encouragement is immensely appreciated. As we approach the threshold for full attendance, I assure you there will be no slacking on my part. I humbly request a few more likes to fuel this endeavor. In the previous chapter, I neglected to include an image of Oliver's mech. I have now rectified that oversight. Seabass gazed at the cockpit, where several dented punishment-class mechs emerged, his heart racing. While M.O. Lee's notoriety was confined to the Dongli Star region, Seabass had encountered a broader cosmos and numerous formidable beings. Yet, the sheer might of M.O. Lee left him in awe. The punishment-class mechs undoubtedly boasted several hegemonic technologies. Yet he failed to discern any, making it clear that the claims of M.O. Lee's invincibility in close combat were no mere rumor. Seabass was acquainted with some details about fighters, but he had never witnessed such an extraordinary phenomenon. Once in close quarters, the adversary could no longer resist. Moreover, many punishment-class mechs were equipped with defensive shields, a bane to fighters, significantly diminishing their profitability and making them less popular due to the disproportionate risks involved. Seabass suddenly recalled those heavy mechs, designed to inflict genuine damage. Confronting them was akin to a father overpowering his son. A flicker of sympathy arose within him, but he quickly cast it aside. The immediate priority was to flee. Mr. M.O., we need not retreat just yet. I have a nascent idea. M.O. Lee's voice resonated. What idea? Seabass inquired. Do you trust me? Mr. M.O., I am uncertain how to respond. Yet you instill a sense of trust, Seabass replied without hesitation. Very well. You shall enter this mech. In the vastness of space, M.O. Lee guided the mech to the somewhat deformed exit of the ship, awaiting Seabass's emergence. Having donned his power suit, Seabass exited the cabin and soared toward the punishment-class mech. Xuanji had long since breached the mecha system. It must be said that the quality of the punishment-class mecha is indeed exceptional. Even when the hatch was battered beyond recognition, it could still open with ease. Seabass seized the opportunity to enter through the hatch, and as he did, all internal systems of the mecha activated simultaneously. A chill ran down Seabass's spine. It was evident that Mo Lee could effortlessly penetrate the ship's mecha network. Once the systems were online, Seabass spoke in a grave tone. Mr. Mo, my resonance level is only 42, which presents significant shortcomings in piloting the mecha. He was unsure of M.O. Lee's intentions for him to pilot the mecha, and he had not even inquired about the resonance level. Nevertheless, he proceeded, even though to him, this mecha felt no different from an iron coffin. No need. Just connect to the resonance, M.O. Lee instructed. Understood. Upon hearing this, Seabass's consciousness plunged into the resonance connection. That familiar sensation, tinged with disdain, washed over him once again. Suppressing his discomfort, Seabass asked, what is the next course of action? Wait for the others to arrive, then you escape directly. M.O. Lee's instructions to Seabass were succinct. After Seabass acknowledged, M.O. Lee's mecha began its operations. Xuanji, disguised as if in sleep mode, he commanded. At that moment, within the ship, the space pirates who had been rampaging and pillaging came to an abrupt halt, as if receiving a command. Each one appeared to be on high alert. They ceased their looting, turning instead to indiscriminately kill, their efficiency in slaughter rapidly escalating. Outside the ship, over a dozen mechas formed a battle array surrounding it, and chaos erupted within the mecha squad's channel. The catalyst for this turmoil was the death of Oliver, one of the 3 punishment-class members of their pirate crew. His demise had stirred a tremendous uproar among the pirates. The remaining 2 punishment-class members simultaneously activated their mechas and communicated within the squad, all Fortress-class pilots. Secure every exit of the ship. Leave no one alive. Buck, follow me. Buck was another punishment-class pilot, while the one speaking was Leaders, also of the same caliber. The 2 punishment-class mechas engaged their engines and propelled themselves toward the coordinates of Oliver's death. They arrived at the battlefield where M.O. Lee had recently fought in mere minutes. As they approached, they spotted Oliver's mecha fleeing into the distance. Looking further, they noticed an unfamiliar mecha quietly hovering, its systems completely shut down as scanned by their devices. At that moment, realization dawned upon them. The enemy had made off with the mecha. Oliver's life signal had long since vanished, meaning the one piloting his mecha could only be the very individual who had taken his life. Buck and Leaders shared a mutual thought, prompting them to ignite their engines and chase after the assailant, disregarding the abandoned mecha entirely. However, As they flew past Mo Lee, the once seemingly inconsequential debris of blood debts flickered with a crimson gleam from its electronic eye. The blazing tail flame illuminated the armored vessel of blood debts. And during the flight, the engine's tail flame abruptly changed color. With a single strike, it was an overload. At this moment, two mechas had just soared past. And upon sensing the anomaly behind them, Mo Lee had already dashed to Buck's side. With a ferocious punch, he simultaneously drove his knee upward, the sharp impact causing Buck to involuntarily bend his body. In that fleeting moment of lost control over his mecha, a crushing elbow strike descended upon him, shattering his personal shield. Buck, still somewhat dazed, soon felt intense vibrations coursing through his body. His internal organs were jolted, and a trickle of blood escaped from the corner of his mouth. Yet, this was merely the beginning. He attempted to maneuver the mecha, only to discover a disconcerting delay in its responses. Following this, the waves of tremors surged forth, the acute pain rendering Buck's consciousness increasingly hazy. Instinctively, he glanced towards his teammate Lights, who had noticed his ambush and was hastening to his aid. However, in his initial unawareness, Lights had dashed a considerable distance ahead. By the time he sensed something amiss and returned, he could only witness Buck fall victim to Mo Lee's relentless assault, utterly defenseless. At that moment, the distance between them felt insurmountable. When Lights finally reached the scene, Buck was sent flying by Mo Lee's final kick, falling silent thereafter. Startled, Lights locked eyes with the crimson electronic gaze of blood debts, instinctively raising his hand towards Mo Lee. Two miniature cannon ports emerged ominously from the back of his hand as the armor unfolded. Sensing danger, Mo Lee leaned back sharply, narrowly evading two finely focused laser beams that streaked past him. Observing the missed shot, his opponent retreated decisively. He was no fool, having clearly witnessed how Buck was dispatched. The brutal flurry of close-quarter strikes had left him astounded. Engaging Mo Lee in close combat now seemed tantamount to courting death. Furthermore, he had already discerned the overloading state of Mo Lee's mecha. All he needed was to buy a little time until the energy was depleted. As Mo Lee noticed the distance widening, he felt no surprise. A quick glance at the distant ship and Oliver's mecha prompted him to advance once more. The 71st, perfect switch. Light's fire control system flickered incessantly, attempting to lock onto Mo Lee, but to target the overloading blood debts was a fanciful notion. Realizing he could not achieve a lock, Lights opted for a widespread missile barrage. All missile bays of the mecha opened, and a multitude of missiles launched forth. Lights did not activate his fire control, knowing these missiles were unlikely to yield results. He simply needed to hinder Mo Lee momentarily. At this juncture, Mo Lee exhibited an astonishing agility, evading the explosions of missiles that detonated around him without sustaining any injury. Even the shockwaves failed to rattle the armor of blood debts. As Lights continued to retreat, he estimated that Mo Lee could not remain in overload for much longer. In truth, however, Mo Lee's overload lasted far shorter than he anticipated. During the explosion of missiles, the energy indicators of blood debts began to flash red, signaling the exit from overload mode. Within the blinding radiance of the explosion, leaders scanned the surroundings, unaware of the peculiarities, until he observed through his scanner a deformed spacecraft rapidly approaching, bearing down on Oliver's mech. What could possibly be its intent? Furrowing his brow, leaders hesitated to act, mindful of Mo Lee's situation, maintaining his distance while charging the particle cannon and locking onto the target. As the spacecraft swiftly neared Mo Lee's position, the explosion's brilliance subsided, revealing a scene that left leader's mind in turmoil. He witnessed the mech, after being propelled forward, collide with blood debt and decelerate. In that fleeting moment of impact, a figure clad in combat attire emerged from the wreckage, leaping onto Oliver's mech. To his astonishment, as the hatch of Oliver's mech swung open, the individual entered, and the mech's systems astonishingly activated. How could this be possible? Leaders gasped, instinctively locking onto Oliver's mech and opening fire. The concentrated particle cannon discharged, sending a torrent of particles cascading onto the mech, but in the next instant, a rectangular energy shield materialized, repelling the onslaught. Recognizing the familiar energy shield, leaders questioned his reality, yet Mo Lee offered him no opportunity for contemplation. Piloting the mech known as Storm Pioneer, he thrust through the particle stream, elevating the angle to evade leaders' lock-on, then swiftly reoriented the particle cannon to target leaders in return. Upon hearing the mech's AI announce the lock-on status, he immediately maneuvered backward, veering sideways as the particle cannon fired. With the cannon now empty, Mo Lee closed the gap with remarkable speed. Even with a change in mechs, leaders felt a palpable trepidation in approaching Mo Lee. The melee capabilities of these combat mechs were undeniably formidable. They could exploit the auxiliary maneuvering engines to their fullest, executing each motion with precision and ferocity in close combat. Weighing the risks, leaders opted for long-range aerial engagement. However, As Mo Lee pursued, he found himself an easy target for the fire control system. Beep, beep. The urgent alarm blared again, sending a jolt through leaders. When had this occurred? Cursed be it, Oliver's mech's fire control system and AI were identical to his own. How had the enemy locked on so swiftly? With too many anomalies to ponder, leaders had no time to waste. But Mo Lee was already firing again, unleashing another particle cannon blast that struck just as leaders completed a maneuver. The particle stream surged forth, and having no means to evade, he was forced to activate the shield for defense. Watching the rapidly depleting energy, leaders felt a pang in his heart. There was no alternative. Failure to shield would mean certain death. The shield deflected the particle stream as leaders dove downward, but Mo Lee was relentless. He had thoroughly assessed the weapon systems of the Storm Pioneer. From both shoulders, 2 flat cannons emerged, while pairs of gun ports sprang from beneath the ribs. Cannons appeared on the sides of his thighs, and even atop his head, all simultaneously manifesting. In that instant, the Storm Pioneer transformed dramatically before leaders' eyes, who gasped in disbelief. The Deep Space Whisper Photonic Array. Without hesitation, he activated the overload mode, yearning for a swift escape from this perilous situation. Yet the ominous beeping of the locked system echoed like the grim summons of death. Why so swiftly? Litter's mind was a tempest. As the fleeting moment from detecting the charging energy to being locked was scarcely a second. In that very instant of being targeted, over a dozen beams of light erupted from the Storm Pioneer, sealing off all of Litter's evasive maneuvers, leaving him with no choice but to erect his shield. The moment those high-energy beams struck his energy barrier, it unleashed a violent ripple, and the readings on the mecha's energy gauge plummeted alarmingly. Both sides seemed to have reached a stalemate, yet for Mo Lee, this was merely the beginning. As the output power surged, the hues of the beams began to shift, and Litter's tumultuous shield began to shatter. No. Boom. The multitude of beams from the Deep Space Whisper effortlessly pierced through Litter's mecha, breaching the engine's energy chamber, resulting in a catastrophic explosion that engulfed the mecha in a colossal fireball. Litters, in his final moments, could not fathom how the opponent, known for a fiercely aggressive close combat style, could exhibit such formidable prowess in long-range fire control after merely switching mechas. What was this? An adaptive mecha system? Litters could not comprehend, nor did he have the luxury of pondering further. Seabass stood, dumbfounded, watching as Mo Lee obliterated Litters. Even his extensive experience left him momentarily bewildered. How long had Mo Lee possessed the Storm Pioneer? 10 seconds? A minute? Yet, the proficiency with which Mo Lee operated this mecha surpassed even that of Oliver. Several thoughts flashed through Seabass's mind, but none could satisfactorily elucidate the situation. Seabass, secure the mechas. I will deal with the Star Pirates. Coincidentally, there were 3 punishment-class adversaries, and Mo Lee had already deduced that these individuals were indeed the Star Pirates cultivated by the Talker Council. He had long coveted the opportunity to confront them, and now that it had presented itself, he would not let it slip away. Additionally, there were 10 Bastion-class Star Pirates scattered throughout the ship, representing a significant bounty. Outside the vessel, 10 Bastion-class mechas encircled the ship, while their warship lingered nearby, with a steady stream of individuals disembarking to enter the vessel. One of the mechas, manned by maids, who was tasked with guarding an escape hatch, felt an unsettling tension. Just moments ago, their leader Oliver had fallen victim to an ambush, and the subsequent silence from the other 2 leaders was disconcerting. What was their current condition? Inquiries echoed within the communication channel, yet no responses were forthcoming. They were likely engaged in combat. It was assumed that a punishment-class pilot lay in hiding. Any individual capable of defeating Oliver would possess a mental acuity around 6 stars of punishment level. With Litters commanding 7 stars and Buck at 5, they would undoubtedly prevail in a confrontation. Perhaps they were pursuing an adversary that had ventured beyond the temporary channel's range. Everyone ought to remain calm. The remaining Bastion-class pilots conversed in the channel, though their tones betrayed a sense of unease. After all, Oliver was a pilot of the heavenly punishment caliber, and to have met such an untimely demise in such an inexplicable manner was utterly disconcerting. Should the enemy choose to assault them, it would indeed be akin to effortlessly slicing through vegetables. Both leaders were equipped with top-tier mechs. Unless the adversary possessed star ring-level technology, they would surely be unable to escape the combined might of the 2 commanders. Indeed, I shared the same sentiment. However, the revelation that such a small spacecraft concealed a formidable foe would surely lead to reprimands upon our return. I had initially believed this would merely be an easy ambush. Suddenly, a harrowing cry pierced the communication channel, prompting the others to urgently call out to the individual. Carlos, do you hear me? Respond. Yet, all that met their appeals was a profound silence. The makeshift communication channel descended into chaos as everyone simultaneously activated their engines, cranking the scanners to maximum power. Gather outside the battleship. Form up. Do not panic. A voice shouted for assembly, and they abandoned their ship to make haste towards their battleship. Yet, amidst the cacophony, no one noticed that the voices were dwindling. By the time they regained their composure, only 5 voices remained in the channel. It was as though an unseen specter mercilessly reaped their lives in the shadows. At that moment, the remaining 5 finally glimpsed one another, and the sight of their comrades brought a measure of relief to their countenances. Keel, behind you. A streak of light flashed past Keel's mech, and they watched in horror as his engine dimmed, his connection severed forcefully. It was then that the remaining 4 discerned the incoming mech. Oliver, they gasped. Disbelief etched across their faces, for the mech before them unmistakably belonged to Oliver. Lee offered them no respite for contemplation, piloting the Heavenly Punishment mech. He unleashed a one-sided slaughter upon these Fortress-class mechs, rendering them incapable of any substantial resistance. After Lee dispatched another, the remaining 3 were paralyzed by fear and scattered in disarray. However, the disparity in performance between the Heavenly Punishment and Fortress classes was insurmountable. To prevent their escape, Lee activated overload mode, effortlessly claiming the lives of the remaining 3. Before long, the primary force of the Star Pirate crew lay vanquished. As for the few remaining assault-class mechs, they were already paralyzed by terror. When others engaged in battle, they would typically eliminate foes from the lower ranks to the higher. Yet now, the enemy had swiftly dispatched the 3 strongest, followed by the effortless slaughter of the second-tier pilots. The remaining pilots, even in greater numbers, were rendered utterly inconsequential. Having dealt with this threat, Lee gazed at the spacecraft that had initiated its warp escape, harboring no desire to pursue. The ship had already preheated its warp engines during the skirmish with the mechs, and the time consumed in dispatching those mechs had afforded it ample opportunity to flee. Nevertheless, this was of little concern. Lee's hunt was far from over. As Seabass piloted the escape vessel, he beheld 10 Fortress-class mechs suspended in the void of space, huddled together. Though he had long reached a conclusion in his mind, witnessing such a striking scene in reality left him momentarily dazed. These pilots, each a paragon of excellence, now find themselves discarded like refuse in the vastness of space, their once formidable presence reduced to mere debris among the stars. Many of the assault-class mechas, under the misguided notion that Lee would spare them, instinctively attempted to flee into the cosmic expanse. However, Lee offered no reprieve. The Deep Space Whisper energy array activated, locking onto them with precision, unleashing relentless beams of energy that pierced through the cockpits of the assault-class mechas one after another. Once the mechas were neutralized, Lee proceeded to retrieve them, and Seabass arrived shortly thereafter, silently piloting his vessel to assist. In no time, a massive collection of space debris materialized outside the ship. Meanwhile, the space pirates boarding the vessel had nearly exterminated the occupants inside, and individuals began to emerge from the ship's exit. However, upon stepping out, they were met with the shocking realization that the space where their ship had been was now utterly vacant, replaced instead by a formidable cluster of mechas. The first space pirate to exit the hatch turned pale upon sighting the mecha assemblage. These pilots held esteemed positions within the pirate ranks, and they were well aware of the meticulous care their mechas received. Recognition was inevitable. As others donned their power suits and emerged, one instinctively wiped his helmet. Just as they witnessed Lee dragging the last assault-class mecha aboard, an increasing number of pirates emerged, eager to return to their ship, only to be confronted with the disconcerting scene. Noticing their presence, Lee approached, raising his weapon to obliterate several of them. Amidst the chaos of fleeing figures, an announcement resonated from their ship. There is no escape. You cannot run. The pirates instinctively turned around, realizing that the hatch had sealed shut, trapping them within isolated compartments. 2 questions arose. First, where's your lair? The pirates exchanged bewildered glances upon hearing the emotionless voice of the ship's AI. What was the intent behind this inquiry? While confusion reigned, a few astute individuals recognized that their chance for survival might lie within this predicament. In one compartment, someone shouted, I know. I can guide you. As he spoke, the lights in that compartment dimmed, plunging it into darkness. Does anyone else know? The AI's voice echoed once more, prompting more individuals to exchange glances before increasingly more voices chimed in. Now, disclose the locations you are aware of. Xuanji had perhaps overestimated the resolve of these pirates. Under the impression that they bore the spirit of a legitimate military force, it proved a miscalculation. Even when separated, their responses all led to the same place. Yet, in an act of caution, Xuanji opened one of the compartments, activating the ship's automated defense system while silencing the audio and displaying the footage from the other compartments. As the automated turrets unleashed a barrage of fire upon the trapped individuals, a chill swept through the remaining pirates. We did not lie. Xuanji remained unfazed by their pleas. After a series of operations, only a handful remained. The location was confirmed, indeed correct. The voice of Xuanji resonated within Molie's mind, signaling that it was nearly time to depart. Seabass, please replenish the ship's energy. At that moment, the remaining space pirates believed they could leave, only to find that while the inner hatch opened, the outer door remained sealed. Lacking mechs, they could not breach the specially crafted alloy walls and were compelled to retreat further into the ship. However, approximately half an hour later, emergency red lights began to flash frantically throughout the vessel. Warning, self-destruct sequence initiated. 30 seconds to evacuation. Please evacuate immediately. In the 73rd sector of the Tekra hub, located in the northern falling star domain, a massive warship was traveling at warp speed. On the bridge, Moly and Seabass engaged in a strategic game of chess. Moly realized he was subtly outmatched by Seabass. After being cornered once more, Moly furrowed his brow, contemplating if Tucker, having lost his claws, might become desperate. Yet, he could not act recklessly here in the northern falling star domain. Seabass, fixated on the chessboard, noted that Tucker was already a prime suspect in this region. If he reached out now, the local representatives would be the first to act against him. Would he be risking a silent defeat? Moly hesitated, seemingly lost in thought. Seabass glanced at him, shaking his head inwardly, reassured that Mr. Moly was not the sort to panic. He then remarked, at this point, it seems he will find no evidence. Moly's actions to erase all traces were executed with such precision that not even Tucker, should he lead a team, would likely uncover any remnants. Furthermore, the Starsea Anglers group will hardly concern themselves with the news of this ship. Their search will most likely be merely symbolic. In the vastness of space, the disappearance of a vessel is all too common, and the difficulty of locating it is immense. This explained why, upon encountering formidable foes, the crew would abandon ship, as they were merely temporary recruits from the Starsea Anglers. The sole allure of this vessel lay in the emblem of the Starsea Anglers. Moly continued to ponder, if my batch of mechs were to be deployed, they would only be able to find a market in the underground black market. Indeed, Seabass concurred, operating openly, even in the northern falling star domain, would inevitably reach Tucker's ears. It is not worth offending a senator for the sake of these funds. Moly's musings led Seabass to consider the best avenue for selling this batch of mechs. After much contemplation, it seemed that the chaotic domain was the only viable option. In that realm, the thugs would not flinch even at the sight of a senator, let alone the Imperial Federation. If they were to act, the chaotic domain was a commendable choice, provided they possessed sufficient strength to avoid being victimized. Moly's interest piqued. Did they truly have such wealth? 2 punishment-class mechs and 10 fortress-class mechs could indeed be absorbed by the chaotic domain. However, the challenge remained. Their current ship lacked the necessary permits, and navigating the fringes of the northern falling star domain would require careful maneuvering. With that, Moly rose and stood by the viewport, while Seabass observed him, lost in thought, questioning how he had initially held such an advantage. However, Moly's words swiftly unraveled his thoughts. Given your profound understanding of this star domain, you must have a solution, right? Indeed. The reason why only the northern falling star domain has experienced chaotic disturbances among the 8 major star domains is due to the covert support from certain factions here. As expected, my connections date back 20 years, and I am uncertain of their current efficacy. Let us attempt a course of action. If that fails, we shall forge our path with sheer force. Seabass was taken aback, having anticipated Moly would suggest using financial means to navigate the situation. Now, the atmosphere felt distinctly altered. Furthermore, was Moly not planning to return to the chessboard? Gazing at the chessboard before him and the solemn figure of Moly standing by the porthole in the distance, Seabass fell into contemplation. The Tekla hub, the closest point in the northern falling star domain to the chaotic star region, also marks the border of the Federation. Beyond lies the uncharted cosmos, where everything remains a mystery. The 8 major star domains represent the limits of the Federation's jurisdiction, while the endless expanse of stars beyond draws countless adventurers eager to explore. Within the Federation's borders, numerous establishments akin to the Tekla hub exist, serving primarily as lighthouses and transit stations for those venturing into the unknown. However, due to the chaotic star region, the Tekla hub appears rather unique. The population here has surged significantly. Although every individual on the streets possesses a legitimate and normal identity, no one truly knows if they might transform into infamous space pirates once they cross the border. Initially, the representatives of the northern falling star domain sought to impose regulations, but ultimately realized the influx of people was beyond their control. Becoming a space pirate is alarmingly effortless, and given the vastness of the Star Sea, acquiring evidence is exceedingly difficult. With the Federation's tacit approval, it was decided to allow the establishment of a pirate stronghold here, now known as the Chaotic Star region. What truly vexes people about the space pirates is their elusive nature. They can hide anywhere within the Federation's territory, be it asteroid belts, desolate planets, or even comets and meteors. However, having a lair changes the dynamics. With a base, they become a target, and the Federation can mobilize its fleet at any moment to eliminate them. The pirates seem aware of this, as they have only established the Chaotic Star region, maintaining a distinct separation from the Northern Falling Star domain. For they all understand that the Northern Falling Star domain is the sword of Damocles hanging over them. After all, that enigmatic Tekla hub houses the Federation's most advanced warships, hub-class vessels. To some extent, these cannot even be classified merely as warships. They possess their own industrial systems, integrated factories, docks, and closed-loop ecological systems. This colossal combat platform can ceaselessly produce mechs, spacecraft, warships, and more for warfare. In the event of conflict, the Tekla hub can sustain operations for an entire decade without external energy supplies. Regarding weaponry, it is equipped with 3 permanent annihilation cannons and features large-scale annihilation beam arrays, simulating pulsar arc shockwave generators. Each of these weapons possesses the capacity to annihilate entire stars. The simulated pulsar bow shock generator has been firmly locked onto the Chaotic Star region. Once the Tekla hub approaches activation, it will unleash high-energy radiation, replete with gamma-ray storms and various high-energy particles. The bow shock will radiate, and within a mere 0.1 seconds, all matter within the Chaotic Star region will be seared to ashes. This is the indisputable Super Battleship of the Federation, a true instrument of war. However, in its ordinary state, the Tekla hub resembles more of a space city than a fortress of war. Is this truly a stronghold of war? Emoli inquired, gazing at the Tekla hub before him, addressing Seabass beside him. Indeed, it serves to intimidate the Chaotic Star region, Seabass replied. Can these star pirates truly accept having a dagger poised at their throats? Emoli could not help but ask. Whether they accept it or not, they must comply. While the Star Sea offers ample opportunities for concealment, life is undeniably harsher than within the Chaotic Star region. Furthermore, the Northern Falling Star domain has declared that as long as they do not overstep their bounds, the Tekla hub will refrain from activating its war mode. Seabass, why do I sense that you are quite knowledgeable about these convoluted matters? Is that so? Perhaps I have encountered them before, Seabass responded calmly. At this moment, the spaceship gradually approached the Tekla hub. The Star Pirates' warships, though not yet of the Star Torch class, still stretched nearly 1,000 meters in length, and their passage would undoubtedly draw attention. However, Xuanji had already preemptively modified the information of this warship via network connections. It now held a legitimate identity as a merchant hailing from the distant Mingqin Star region. As for the nature of this merchant, the Northern Falling Star domain chose to turn a blind eye, allowing a harmonious coexistence with the Star Pirates, facilitated not only by the deterrent of firepower, but also by the tributes paid by the pirates themselves. Thus, Mo Li and his companions successfully docked at the Tekla hub. Upon docking, Seabass rose, his expression a mixture of complexity. Mr. Mo, our journey together has reached its conclusion. Mo Li felt little sentimentality. His regard for Seabass was more one of appreciation for his talents. Yet, it was evident that Seabass had significant matters to attend to, and he would not impede him. Rest assured, we shall meet again. Let us hope so. The contact method I provided you is trustworthy. When they inquire about your identity, simply state that you are Iron Hand. Ah, so your name is Iron Hand. Emoli chuckled. Just a remnant of the past. Seabass bid a final farewell and departed the ship. Emoli took a moment to prepare aboard the vessel before resting for a day, after which he contacted the method Seabass had given him. After a full half-minute of waiting, the communication was finally connected. Have you returned? Came the immediate inquiry from the other end. I have returned. For those who cannot, Emoli replied, his expression grave. You are not Victor. How do you possess this contact? Victor, you say? Emoli narrowed his eyes. He provided it to me. Where is he? The urgency in the voice escalated. He should not have returned. Now Christopher has become a favored figure of Councilman Chun, who is exploiting him for profit among the Star Pirates. Just departed. Damn it. The other party took a deep breath. You must call him back. This could save him. Years have passed, and it is time to let go. After all, he is a distinguished member of Parliament. Emoli felt a flicker of emotion. It appeared that the other party was quite familiar with Seabass, and it seemed that Seabass's past was intertwined with the parliamentarian. Nevertheless, this was a path chosen by Seabass himself. He could seek assistance, but he chose not to, and thus Emoli would respect his decision. He had his own resolutions. Based on his understanding of Seabass, Emoli uttered a single phrase. The other party fell silent, and after a moment, let out a deep sigh. Indeed, he had always been this way. If he truly moved on, he would no longer be the once iron-fisted Victor. Sigh. So what is it that you require from me? I have a batch of mechs I wish to sell. Selling mechs? The other party fell silent after speaking, seemingly lost in thought. Victor had gone so far as to reveal his return just to introduce me to you, proving that you are a trustworthy individual. However, As you are aware, our channel has a high commission rate. In light of Victor, I can assist you without charge. Emoli was taken aback. His voice inevitably tinged with excitement. Really? Is that true? When Seabass informed him of this large shipment, the associated risks were considerable, even if he were to go himself. The other party might still take a 10% cut, yet now to be told it was free? The thought of that enormous figure invigorated Emoli. The other party seemed puzzled by Emoli's reaction. I share a deep bond with him. This sum is hardly a concern for me. Where are you now? I'll come to inspect the goods. Soon, Emoli promptly sent him the address. The special spacecraft docking port? How curious. Isn't that a place reserved for large vessels and star fleets? The other party murmured before hanging up, while Emoli waited anxiously. This person, not only loyal but also quite generous, truly a good man. Before long, Emoli spotted a hovering vehicle coming to a halt beside his warship. From it emerged a slender man with a shock of red hair. Once he disembarked, Emoli's communicator chimed. I have arrived. Emoli opened the hatch to greet him. Here he comes. You are Victor's friend? I am Cole. Emoli replied. I am Emoli. Emoli, you say? From the Mingxin star region? Or perhaps the Dongli star region? Cole scrutinized Emoli, and for some reason, the warm smile on his face made Cole feel an unsettling chill down his spine. Ahem, let us not dwell on these details. Let us inspect the goods, shall we? Emoli rubbed his hands together, already feeling impatient. Seeing this, Cole's discomfort intensified, as though something was amiss, yet he could not pinpoint the source of his unease. Then let us proceed. Cole was not one to dawdle, and the two entered the spacecraft. The assault-class mechs here are the easiest to sell. Your batch should be sold out in about half a month, and the price will be slightly below market value. Understood, understood. After all, this is a zero-cost acquisition. Zero-cost acquisition? That means no expense in procurement. Quite intriguing. Cole chuckled and followed Emoli to the storage area of the mechs. The mechs were meticulously arranged by Emoli, so as Cole entered the mech hangar, he instinctively widened his eyes at the sight of the rows of mechs. This. He pointed at the mechs, and suddenly his gaze fell upon the 12 mechs at the forefront, causing him to shudder involuntarily. I. Emoli beamed with enthusiasm. 34 assault-class mechs, 10 fortress-class mechs, and 2 judgment-class mechs. Each exhibits varying degrees of battle damage. But I was careful to avoid any critical components. A mere touch-up on the cockpit armor will suffice. They're practically as good as new for personal use. What do you think? Cole stared in shock, his hands trembling as he pointed at the mechs, rendered speechless for a considerable time, his emotions too complex to articulate. After a while, he finally regained his composure and cast a complicated glance at Emoli. Is this what you referred to as a batch of mechs? Indeed. Emoli replied with a nonchalant air. Cole, feeling exasperated, retorted, a batch? This is an entire mech squadron. Heaven knows, when you mentioned a batch of mechs, I instinctively thought you meant 5 or 6 assault-class mechs. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Cole inquired, if it's not too much trouble, may I ask how you acquired them? Seabass had mentioned that this individual was trustworthy, and only after knowing the source would he dare to accept the goods. Emoli, without hesitation, revealed, they were obtained from the space pirates led by Tucker in the North Falling Star region. Cole stood frozen, his mind reeling. That is not right. Wait, how do you know they are Tucker's space pirates? Victor incurred a substantial cost to gather that information. Did he share it with you? Cole's disbelief was palpable, recalling how Victor had reluctantly divulged the news to him. What's wrong? Emoli asked, puzzled by Cole's sudden agitation. As if he were questioning the reliability of the information. Cole inhaled deeply, forcing himself to remain calm as he scrutinized the mechs before him. 2 Judgment class and 10 Fortress class. Indeed, these belonged to Tucker's crew. Upon examining the extent of the damage, he noted they seemed to have avoided any fierce combat, remaining in remarkably good condition. Such mechs would fetch a high price in the black market. Wait, this isn't the time to consider the price. Cole abruptly shook his head. The dilemma lay in the fact that this mech unit could easily contend with Star Ring-class adversaries. So how had they been captured so effortlessly? The mechs bore minimal damage. It appeared that this individual was backed by a formidable team, likely led by a Star Ring-class pilot. Such pilots were commanders on the battlefield against the Zerg. How could they possibly be found in the chaotic star realms where nothing thrives? Could they belong to someone from another star domain? Cole's thoughts raced. Yet he snapped back to reality when Emoli waved in front of him. What's the matter? Oh, if these are Tucker's mechs, then the circumstances for action become significantly simpler. Emoli, now curious, asked, aren't you afraid of Tucker? Afraid? How could we not be? Cole's lips curled into a sardonic smile. Yet in this chaotic star domain, I can only assert that even Tucker's name holds no sway here. Quite the impressive background, isn't it? Emoli gazed at him in astonishment. It is not merely a background. Tucker would never dare to investigate this place. Even if he were aware, he would not utter a word. As for those purchasing the mechs, they are oblivious to the fact that this band of space pirates is affiliated with Talker. However, given the substantial quantity, the speed of action may be somewhat sluggish. To be frank, my current finances cannot accommodate the entirety of this transaction. If you trust me, allow me to safeguard them, and I shall assist you in selling them gradually. Mo Li furrowed his brow, seeking counsel from Xuanji in his mind. Xuanji had no better alternatives, for the origins of this batch of mechs cannot be made public. They can only be sold here in the Chaotic Star domain, and selling them to Talker's adversaries is impractical due to the significant distance. Any large shipment of mechs would inevitably face rigorous scrutiny, regardless of location. Presently, entrusting them to Cole appears to be the most prudent choice. Furthermore, Mo Li looked at Cole with eager anticipation. He does not take a cut. Where else could one find such a favorable arrangement? Confronted with Mo Li's sparkling, expectant gaze, Cole's expression stiffened, as if recalling something. Just as he was about to speak, Mo Li's raucous laughter interrupted him. Ha! Brother Cole, you truly are the most capable person I have ever encountered. To handle such a vast quantity of mechs requires both skill and audacity. Indeed, you are remarkable. Unlike me, I am merely a clumsy mech operator, lacking in intellect, and only proficient in combat. The unexpected flattery left him somewhat disconcerted, yet his thoughts involuntarily gravitated in that direction. What is happening? This individual seems to be making a valid point. Moreover, Mo Li shifted his tone. You must also be trustworthy, and your reputation must be quite commendable. Otherwise, Seabass. Oh no. Victor would not have recommended you to me. The mention of reliability set off alarm bells in Cole's mind. This could be a case of excessive praise leading to his downfall. However, what he said appears to hold some truth. I have complete faith in you regarding this batch of mechs. Mo Li patted his shoulder. And since you are so generous, I certainly trust you. He continued, let's proceed. The mechs are now in your possession. Here are my Star Network identity and account details. Should any issues arise, feel free to contact me via the Star Network. Once sold, simply transfer the funds to me. As Cole beheld the account before him, he instinctively added Mo Li as a friend on the Star Network, while simultaneously saving the account details. What about the cut? Mo Li inquired, raising an eyebrow. At that moment, Cole's expression transformed dramatically, displaying regret, frustration, helplessness, and anguish, all culminating in a resigned sigh. He then slapped himself vigorously and sighed. Let it be as we previously agreed. Mo Li was somewhat astonished. What had been a casual remark seemed to have genuinely exempted him from the cut. Selling this batch of mechs would likely yield profits in the hundreds of billions. Meeting Mo Li's gaze, Cole declared, in the eyes of others. I may be a shrewd businessman, often reviled. Yet, before those I know, I am a person of utmost credibility. You are trusted by Victor, and I shall not go back on my word. Such audacity, Mo Li remarked earnestly. The task at hand is mine. The acquisition of these mechs will yield numerous benefits. Once sold, my reputation within the Chaotic Star domain shall resonate far and wide. Cole, being quite pragmatic, openly articulated the advantages these mechs present. In this realm, the number of second-hand dealers capable of offering heavenly retribution-grade mechs is exceedingly rare. However, should one be able to do so, reverence from others is inevitable, for they remain unaware of the origins of such power. To possess the capability to vanquish heavenly retribution-grade entities implies at the very least, one is of high heavenly retribution caliber, if not a star ring. Such prowess commands respect, as most individuals in the Chaotic Star domain would think twice before inciting your wrath. Seabass proves to be reliable, living up to his name. Brother, should I encounter further acquisitions, you shall be the first I approach. With that, Mo Li prepared to disembark. Oh, and this battleship too can be sold. Everything is negotiable, provided the price is right. Cole chuckled wryly, watching as Mo Li walked away. He then resumed his examination of the mechs, inspecting for damages. Upon observing the dent in the chest of the Storm Vanguard, Cole recalled Mo Li's parting words. Further acquisitions? Wait, what does further entail? Why does it pertain to me? A chill ran down Cole's spine. Does he operate alone? Is he without a team? The very notion startled him, and he shook his head vigorously. If that were true, how extraordinary must Mo Li's strength be to achieve such feats? After scrutinizing the wounds on the other mechs and discerning the marks of energy weapons, he breathed a sigh of relief. Clearly, the damages were inflicted by multiple mechs. He thought to himself, how could someone who appears to be in their 20s possess such capabilities? It seems he has overthought the matter. No wonder he has been restless of late. As Mo Li departed the ship, he took with him only a small spacecraft and blood debt. Though the two heavenly retribution-grade mechs were commendable, their propulsion and engine systems paled in comparison to those of blood debt. The vector thrusters and microplasma engines of blood debt are crucial for executing speed and advanced maneuverability. In fact, many mechs lack the agility of blood debt. However, it has begun to show signs of lagging. as engaging in heavenly retribution-grade combat remains cumbersome. Any upgrades to the mechs must await Jiang Yan's arrival. The designs for the upgrades are nearly complete. Only the production and assembly of various components remain. The two heavenly retribution-grade mechs sold to Cole predominantly utilize long-range tactics, whereas Mo Li prefers those with a degree of close-quarters capability. During his time in the Flame Dragon Empire, facing the insectoid species, weapons with minimal energy consumption were undoubtedly the optimal choice for mechs. When confronted with a substantial number of the insectoids, the battleships would engage. Within the Tekla hub, throngs of individuals scurried about, each with purpose. Here, one could discern two types of people, those conducting business with star pirates and the pirates themselves. Yet, Mo Li was different. He belonged to a third category, star pirate hunter. Should others become aware of a star pirate hunter's presence within this den of thieves, they would surely deem him mad. For this is the stronghold of star pirates. And should his identity as a hunter be uncovered, escaping the Tekla hub may prove impossible. Mo Li observed the crowd, noting that more than half were indeed star pirates. The star thieves are markedly different from ordinary individuals. Their gazes often bear a fierce intensity, and their postures are taut, seldom betraying any semblance of relaxation. Seabass has already conveyed a general overview of the situation here. Firstly, regarding the star thieves, the chaotic star region has yielded 5 developed star systems, each dominated by 5 major factions, with each faction boasting 2 to 3 top-tier pilots. Currently, there are no pilots of the star ring level present. These 5 factions are known as the Rust Brotherhood, the King of Scrap Ships, the Shattered Star Plunderers, the Frenzied Flame Robbers, and the Disorderly Gang. The differences among these factions are minimal, for they are all star thieves, and the visibility of their territory to external forces necessitates a fragile unity. Any disunity could lead to their downfall. However, this unity is merely a matter of mutual non-interference. Those who become star thieves share similar temperaments, characterized by explosive tempers and an unwillingness to yield to one another. Current circumstances compel them to coexist. Within a hotel, Mo Li reclines in a bathtub beside a floor-to-ceiling window, gazing out at the vista beyond the Tekla hub. Xuanji has connected to the network in search of information, yet the results have proven disappointing. These star thieves are exceedingly cautious. They lack proficiency in sophisticated technological endeavors like network operations, and the true masters of the star network are the Empire and the Federation, rendering their information unavailable online. Instead, they primarily utilize a local network established within the chaotic star region and prefer face-to-face meetings for information exchange. A casino, apparently a venture of the Disorderly Gang, is nearby. Xuanji's voice breaks the silence, prompting Mo Li to rise, revealing his well-defined muscles. Let us begin with the Disorderly Gang. His objective this time is the wealth of these star thieves. It matters not from whom he starts. The route has been plotted, and the funds from Cole have arrived, all converted into energy units of the 10 directions of silence. Mo Li dons a set of casual attire and steps out, online. He can only ascertain the general locations of these star thieves, the precise coordinates necessitating contact with their operatives. The vastness of the universe means that even the slightest deviation could lead Mo Li to pass by the stronghold of these star thieves, becoming lost amidst the stars. The farthest reach of the star network connects to the Tekla hub, beyond which access is severed. Once lost, the likelihood of return diminishes drastically. The chaotic star region is not solely inhabited by the 5 major factions. Countless smaller bands of star thieves lurk in every corner, with even the most insignificant asteroid potentially harboring a band of thieves. What Mo Li requires now is a guide. The Dakampali Casino stands as the largest entertainment hub within the Tekla hub, a melting pot of diverse individuals. Rumored to be a collaboration between the Disorderly Gang and the official entities of the Tekla hub. Such establishments often see individuals ascend to dizzying heights of wealth overnight. Yet more frequently, they witness the ruination of families and the descent of the virtuous into vice. Upon arriving here, Mo Li gazes upward at the resplendent opulence before him, his expression growing cold. Upon entering, he casually exchanges a few hundred star coins for chips, then seeks out a common interface to facilitate Xuanji's infiltration into their network. Once Xuanji successfully breaches their defenses, Mo Li begins to engage with the electronic devices, paying no mind to the live gambling occurring around him. With the assistance of Xuanji, Mo Li experienced an uninterrupted winning streak, displaying the exuberance of a novice. His face flushed with excitement as he clenched his fists and shouted with fervor each time he placed a bet. Initially, no one paid him any heed. But as time passed, they noticed that this seemingly naive individual was enjoying extraordinary luck. His victories continued unabated, and soon, some seasoned gamblers could no longer contain their curiosity, eager to learn his methods, which only drew more onlookers to Mo Li's side. Oblivious to the gathering crowd, he continued to win. transforming his initial stake of a few hundred star coins into a staggering sum exceeding 10 million. While such an amount might not stir much commotion in the realm of purchasing mechs, to an ordinary person, it represented a fortune that could last a lifetime. Behind Emily, many gazes were filled with avarice. Some were breathing heavily, and had it not been for the prestigious Kampali casino, they might have already acted upon their desires. With over 10 million in chips cradled in his arms, Emoli exchanged them for 10 high-value chips. At that moment, numerous eyes were fixated on his every move. Xuanji, why do I feel like we could keep winning without any need for violence? He mused. That is implausible. Once you exceed 100 million, someone will surely invite you to dine, Xuanji responded, fully aware of the intricate politics and regulations within the casino, having control over its operations. In reality, Emoli had already caught the attention of the casino staff. As he exchanged his chips, some individuals had even positioned their hands near their weapons, only relaxing upon witnessing him change for high-denomination chips. Unfazed by the underlying hostility, Emoli ascended to the second floor, where the atmosphere was markedly quieter, devoid of electronic devices, and filled solely with manual gaming methods. Emoli had his own objectives. Upon encountering his target, he joined the ongoing game. 3 players were currently engaged, and his sudden entrance drew their attention. He placed 10 high-value chips on the table without uttering a word, his expression a mix of amusement and intrigue. Half an hour later, the faces of the 3 players soured as all their chips found their way to Emoli. His smile broadened, and with a casual farewell, he descended to exchange his chips and leave. On the way back, Xuanji inquired, Didn't he approach you? Of course not, Emoli replied with a smile. Within the Tekra hub, they will not act against me until they have thoroughly investigated my background. Will you give them the opportunity to do so? She pressed. Emoli's lips curled into a smirk, indeed. The following day, Emoli departed aboard the spacecraft he had previously secured, leaving the Tekra hub behind. Shortly after his departure, 4 or 5 ships followed suit, navigating in the same direction. Not long after, utilizing the flight path he had acquired online, Emoli initiated a warp jump. Merely 10 minutes into the journey, an alert from Xuanji resonated within the ship, detected interference from a retrograde warp field, exiting warp mode imminently. As her warning concluded, the vessel abruptly exited warp, revealing 3 red dots on the scanners ahead. Upon witnessing the scene, Emoli's smile broadened. Astonished by the presence of starships equipped with a retroactive warp field, revealing a level of wealth beyond his expectations. The deployment of such advanced technology clearly indicated their intentions were aimed squarely at him. With little to say, Emoli proceeded to the rear chamber, entering Blood Debt. In the distance, 3 starships hovered in space, with a central vessel adorned by a massive disk emitting peculiar waves. Kree, this fat sheep has halted. Shall we deploy the mechs? Is that even a question? Hurry and capture him. Kree, a middle-aged man with brown hair and dark skin, grinned silently as he spoke. 7 mechs launched from the rear chamber of the ship, but before they could form their ranks, alarms blared through the communication channel. Warning, unidentified craft detected, high-speed assault imminent. Please prepare for engagement. Target acquired, data processing. Processing complete, preliminary assessment, Fortress-class mech. The 7 mechs were momentarily stunned, and Kree, commanding from the bridge, paled and abruptly stood up. The bridge is yours. None had anticipated that a random individual would be a Fortress-class pilot. Such a rank could easily ascend to the management tier of the 5 major factions. Fortunately, their Captain Kree was also a Fortress-class pilot, bolstered by the 7 Assault-class mechs. Before the bridge crew could dwell on their predicament, they caught sight of a figure streaking towards them, trailing flames at high speed, as the system's alarms intensified. Correction, the enemy's speed has surpassed Fortress-class. At this moment, Kree had just begun piloting his mech into outer space. His mech, resplendent in crimson, bore a ship-slicing blade in its left hand and a high-frequency particle oscillating edge in its right. Just as he prepared for battle, connecting to the empathy mode, a flicker of light caught his eye. A dual-bladed mech charged at him, locking him in its scarlet electronic gaze. In that instant, a chill ran down his spine. Emoli disregarded Kree, recognizing him as the key to locating the headquarters of the Disorder Gang. Instead, he turned his attention to the 7 Assault-class mechs nearby. Blood Debt's vector thrusters propelled it to speeds rivaling that of the Judgment class, rendering the Assault-class mechs incapable of reacting. As Blood Covenant transformed into its blade form, Kree could only witness a fleeting flash of blood, akin to a lightning bolt piercing through the 7 Assault-class mechs. Subsequently, a cacophony of explosions erupted, 7 brilliant fireballs igniting and casting glimmers upon Kree's mech. In that moment, Kree felt his strength dissipate entirely, confronted with the mech. He could not muster a single thought of resistance. Instinctively, he yearned to flee, yet Blood Debt had already materialized beside him like a specter. The terror within compelled him to instinctively scream and swing his blade. Lee raised his hand, effortlessly deflecting the attack with the blood oath. Then, with remarkable ease, pierced through the specialized alloy of the mech, entering the cockpit. As the cockpit was severed, the frigid void of outer space rushed into Kelly's consciousness. Gazing at the blade that had cleaved through his very being, his awareness swiftly descended into chaos. After dispatching Kelly, Lee immediately set his sights on the 3 vessels above. The curved speed field, originally intended to intercept Lee, now became their hindrance. The pulse engines of the 3 ships were no match for the vector thrusters of Blood Oath. Locking onto the smaller vessel on the right, Lee propelled himself forward at full speed. The vector thrusters unleashed their full power, and the distance between them closed at a visibly rapid pace. The crew aboard the ship quickly noticed Lee, their faces pale with fear, yet retracting the curved speed field would take time, a brief interval that determined life or death. In an instant, Lee collided with the ship like a bullet, and a series of explosions erupted from the point of impact. Within mere seconds, he burst forth from the head of the ship, which lacked the funds for an energy shield. Boom, boom, boom. The explosions continued relentlessly, and in the blink of an eye, the vessel was engulfed in flames. After neutralizing one ship, Lee pressed on, crossing over to locate another. These were the most rudimentary of space pirates, and the vessels were poorly equipped. It wasn't long before the second ship followed suit and exploded. Having dealt with 2 ships, Lee ascended onto the central vessel, his massive frame crashing down without destabilizing it. However, those within the command bridge, peering through the windows at the menacing figure of Blood Oath, found their composure faltering. In that moment, only a pane of glass separated them from certain doom. In their overwhelming fear, they seemed to hear the thunderous roar of Blood Oath's engines. Then, they witnessed Blood Oath gently tapping on the glass. For humans, it was merely a trivial gesture, but from the perspective of a towering mech standing over 10 meters tall, it was rather intimidating. Especially in the vacuum of space where even a small breach could lead to catastrophic consequences. Rapid decompression, loss of air, and the intense heat of direct sunlight, all equally lethal. Fortunately, Lee's tap was merely to draw their attention. The sheer size of the mech made it impossible for them to overlook. Inside, panic ensued as Lee activated the sensors, projecting the universal interstellar language, shut down the engines, and opened the ship's public access. Their leader, Kelly, was dead, and the other 2 ships had been destroyed. The pirates aboard displayed little backbone and promptly surrendered. They were nothing like the defeated Crimson Star before. The hatch opened, and Xuanji accessed the ship's systems through the public permissions they had granted. No issues arose. Boarding was feasible. The pirates' swift capitulation took Xuanji by surprise. Observing the ship's layout, no one dared to pick up arms in resistance. In fact, 2 particularly clever individuals had locked the armory and taken refuge in the central chamber with their hands clasped atop their heads. Chapter 78. The Realm of Chaos. Upon entering the spaceship, Lee also piloted the Blood Debt, disembarking once the hatch sealed behind him. Upon arriving at the bridge, he found the crew had already formed an orderly line, awaiting inspection with an air of tacit understanding. A smirk tugged at Lee's lips. These space pirates were indeed quite adept at their roles. He scanned the group and commanded, "Who is the highest ranking among you? Step forward." Yet, none dared to advance. Suddenly, an idea struck Lee, and he sighed. "Except for me, of course." No sooner had he spoken than a small, somewhat shifty-eyed man scurried forward, exclaiming, Me. I am Cohen." Lee regarded him with a discerning glance. "How does one reach the lair of the Orderless gang from here?" Cohen, upon hearing this, felt a cold sweat trickle down his brow. He was well aware of the location of the gang's stronghold, but the mere act of revealing it could spell his doom multiple times over. Lee seemed to read his thoughts, stating, "If you choose not to speak, you shall meet your end immediately." He then turned his gaze toward the others. "Surely, you are not the only one who knows this information?" Realizing he had no choice, Cohen understood that neither the Orderless gang nor Lee was an adversary he could afford to offend. However, it was evident that Lee's threat loomed more imminent and palpable. Thus, the spaceship ignited once more, embarking on its journey. The route back was painfully familiar to Cohen. The Orderless gang's domain was akin to paradise for these pirates. True to their name, the Orderless gang occupied an entire star system, yet nearly all resided upon one of its modified satellites. This satellite was devoid of any semblance of order. On the satellite, inhabitants fell into 2 distinct categories: the gang members and the meat slaves. The former wielded supreme authority, while the latter, as their name suggests, were reduced to mere commodities. The Orderless gang discarded those they captured from the outside world onto this satellite for their own hedonistic pleasures and hunts. In such a realm, stripped of humanity and order, the darkness of the human heart transcended mere words. Cohen had indulged in the delights of this chaotic place in the past, yet now it felt like the terminus of his life's journey. Arriving here signified the end of his existence. As the ship soared through the warp, the surrounding space zipped by like the fleeting moments of his life. Cohen's complexion turned ashen, while Emily sat nearby, silent yet exuding an intangible pressure. The realm of the orderless gang was not far off. Mere hours of warp travel brought them to their destination. Exiting warp mode, the ship was immediately bombarded with connection requests. Emily gestured toward Cohen, whose pallor deepened. He swallowed hard, wiped the sweat from his brow, and endeavored to appear as composed as possible. The connection request was accepted. Klee, what brings you back? Did you lose everything at the Tekra hub? Ha ha ha. Lord Klee is not here. It's me, Cohen. Why are you back alone? Cohen glanced at Emily, bracing himself as he recounted the preordained narrative. Lord Kelly was facing troubles outside. A fortress-level pilot was seeking vengeance against him. I returned to seek the Blood Shadow leader. Is there anyone audacious enough to challenge us at the Tekla hub? Are they tired of living? The voice on the channel sounded quite irate. Let us hurry back. It seems we have been inactive for too long. This time out, we must capture another batch of flesh slaves. The previous consumption was too rapid. We are running short. Mentioning flesh slaves lightened the tone of the other party considerably. Very well, grant me access rights first. It's open now. Come in. With the alert lifted, the spacecraft landed smoothly on the satellite. As they traversed the artificial atmosphere of the satellite, the scene below unfolded before Emily's eyes. An endless expanse of green, interspersed with blue accents. If this were not the lair of space pirates, it would indeed be a picturesque sight. It appears that these pirates have invested a significant amount of money in its transformation. Contemplating this, Emily's expression darkened, having turned to piracy. Why not simply find a small asteroid, drill a hole, and reside within? This is all his money. Cohen was taken aback by Emily's sudden somber demeanor. Fearing he might be the next to face retribution, instinctively retreating a couple of steps. Fortunately, after a moment, Emily ignored his reaction, allowing Cohen to breathe a sigh of relief. The spacecraft navigated within the asteroid, and soon came upon a vast city nestled within a forest. Emily clenched his fists tighter. How many star coins must have been expended on this city? Extravagant, far too extravagant. Emily took a deep breath to steady himself as he followed the spacecraft into the city. Despite being a den of pirates, the city was surprisingly well-structured. After the spacecraft landed, Cohen's heart raced. The others seemed to sense their impending fate, each of them casting anxious glances at Emily. Rising from his seat, Emily surveyed the gathered assembly and smiled. I have heard that you possess a specialty known as flesh slaves. At his words, the expressions of those present varied. Some appeared lost in thought, seemingly reminiscing. Others looked uneasy, while a few appeared tense, as if this was the moment Emily was about to decree their destinies. Unbeknownst to them, at that instant, every nuance of their movements was meticulously captured by Xuanji. After a brief analysis, Xuanji's voice echoed, not a single innocent among them. Emily's smile widened, and without uttering another word, he exited the chamber. Cohen and the others exhaled in relief, believing they had evaded danger, only for the hatch to slam shut suddenly. Subsequently, the oxygen within the chamber began to deplete rapidly, and a line of blood-red text appeared on the working screen. There was enough oxygen here for 3 individuals to survive for 10 minutes. However, for the current occupants, it would likely last only a minute. A simple yet chilling reminder compelled many to silently clutch the nearest solid object. Do not breathe. A sharp object was thrust mercilessly into the back of the head of the man in front. Cohen's pupils constricted at this sight. Emily intended to incite them into a frenzy of mutual slaughter. Yet, this was their stronghold, and it would not be long before their actions were discovered, perhaps half an hour at most. Cohen's complexion paled, as he began to feel a sense of suffocation, a sensation shared by the others. It was as if the hand of death was tightening around their throats. Glancing at the bloodied inscriptions, he noted 3 individuals within a mere 10 minutes. Thus, these bloodthirsty space pirates descended into madness. A bloody internecine conflict erupted within the confines of the spaceship. The spaceship's hatch opened, and Emily piloted Blood Dead out into the external environment. The moment he set foot on the satellite, a frown creased his brow. The planet's beauty was but an illusion, visible only from a distance. Upon landing, the terrain revealed itself to be desolate, and a towering net, exceeding 10 meters in height, separated him from the distant forest. Within the confines of this net lay a bustling city, while outside loomed the forest, a grotesque sight reminiscent of a slaughterhouse, with bloodstains, decaying corpses, and severed limbs scattered everywhere. It was hard to fathom that such a hellish scene was merely a net away. And to prevent the spread of disease, purifiers had been installed, ensuring no contamination reached their side. Emily's expression grew cold as he gazed toward the brightly illuminated center of the city. Just then, the satellite rotated to the planet's dark side, and the brilliance of the stars faded, making the city lights appear even more striking against the backdrop of the forest. Something caught his eye, a small head peeking out from behind a tree, its face smeared with filth, revealing a pair of eyes brimming with terror. The thrusters activated, and Lee, devoid of emotion, propelled the mech skyward. These pirates harbored a profound fear of death and had established a defensive air system. The moment Blood Debt ascended, an alarm indicating a lock-on resonated within. A lock-on, you say? Lee paid no heed, initiating the thrusters' preheating phase. The disordered gang of pirates would hardly issue warnings. An unregistered mech on their territory could only elicit one response: attack. 2 distant points of light ignited, and the auxiliary thrusters of Blood Debt roared to life, shifting